slash November anime 2023, manga 2023. This is a combination of both anime and manga. So I try to get this one done real fast because I have something else I have to do, but also because uh, kind of a disappointing month for both November and December. Um, Embargo set aside, streaming services set aside, when things were released set aside, and some things still haven't been released set aside. It's been kind of a letdown in the anime department, and a kind of a letdown in the manga department as well. One, because I need to point out the fact that there's so many trash mangas that are out there. It's beyond ridiculous. To the point that it becomes cringy to actually sift through so many bad ones just to try to find good ones. It's like finding a needle in a haystack, so to speak. Well, not really. It's more like finding gold amongst like 1,001 rocks. So it's a little difficult, but it's not too difficult. Why the industry decides to focus a lot on overly violent animes and overly violent mangas and overly sexualized animes and overly sexualized mangas. I don't know um, if this is like a thing that's a phase that has passed, or is if it's a phase that's present in 2023 and 2022, or is it going to be something that's ongoing. I've never considered that stuff to be even somewhat relevant of an importance. To me, story has always been king. And if you have a good story, you have good characters, you have good situation, you have good artwork and design, you have something to present to your audience beyond the norm, then that's something to go for. So, without speaking too much on this, my name is Maggie. I do anime, I do manga, I do gaming as well. Today's one is a combination of both manga and of both anime. Now, since they haven't been a lot due to embargoes, due to streaming service restrictions, and when things can leave a country and when they arrive in the U.S. By products, physical product states, these things arrived in November, but by streaming service they never arrived. In fact, some are still on delay, like Blue Giant, the anime took a good 6 months for it just to get into the United States for streaming services, such as Suzume. So Suzume is going to be one I'm going to put on this list simply because it's been there for months. I've been trying to watch it for months. And if you don't know what Suzume no Tojimari is, it's a very good anime. So it's going to be I sorry to say this, but it's going to be the only one on this list. I sifted through like 7 or 8 of these animes for both November and December, and I discovered that in November months, there was hardly any new anime released. Emphasis on the word new anime released in November in Japan. The same applies for December. There was hardly any new anime released in Japan in December. And just to point out, if there were new ones, these ones fall under the categories I said that I'm not into. They were either overly sexualized, fall into realm of too violent NC-17 territory, or they were very questionable. It's very hard to find a manga and an anime that falls between the line of good and bad. So, without further ado, these are three of uh, products that I found, both in manga and anime. Obviously, Suzume is the only anime on this list, and the two mangas on this is called Maryoku Man 99, and the other one is let me see if I'm saying it correctly. Saikyou de Saisoku no Mugen. That's the next one. There are two mangas and one anime, and it's very disappointing when you try to go through so many animes to find that there's not a single anime that was released in December and in November that was good. I mentioned before Blue Giant. Blue Giant was terrible. Blue Giant was terrible. I thought I was going to get into a music anime, and it was good. It was overly emphasizing in spectacles of use of lighting and use of expression on people's faces to emphasize their love for the music. They've never heard this type of sound before. It's fantastic, and it was cringy all the way through because the music that they were playing wasn't to the level that these people were feeling ecstasy. It didn't make sense. It didn't match up, and the tone of the music with the jazz music didn't match up with the tone of how they were expressing their love and joy of what they're hearing. I was saying to myself, well, this seems like a very good jazz song, but would these people really be acting like it's something that's this special for the behavior for which the anime they're trying to express their love for it is? No, um, didn't make sense. I didn't see that whatsoever within that anime, so I left that out. It was very hard for me to get through that anime. Blue Giant is good with regards to the music itself, but the anime doesn't do the music justice, so I'm not going to put that one on there. Moving on, so this is the first image you see here. I'm not going to get. I'm going to get into the good stuff. This is called Gaea Tima. Um, there are actually, now that I think about it, there are three. There are three mangas I'm going through, and one anime. This one is the best one of the three mangas, and the anime Suzume would be second amongst. If I was to choose, let's say if Suzume no Tojimari was a manga, which it probably was. I don't know. I would say Suzume would come in second place to this. That's how good this manga is. So this is called Gaea Tima, but it has a first name. I just don't remember what the first name was. I would have to look it up again. I think it's a Kami-sama Gaea Tima. But I'm watching this and I read through it all the way through to its, I believe its 10th, its 5th or its 10th chapter. Typically I go through one manga to first, second, and its third chapter to see if it's good, and then from that I recommend it on forward. But I went through this one a lot. So this is my first manga I would recommend to anyone who is into manga or into anime, and possibly this is one of those mangas that's going to make it to uh, becoming an anime series or at least a movie down the road. I could see this one because this is a kaiju um, a manga, and not simply a regular kaiju manga. This is a kaiju manga that focuses more on the destruction of the wake of an attack of a kaiju. So this reminds me of very uh, a lot. This reminds me a lot of um, Godzilla Zero or Godzilla Minus One, if you want to call it that. Godzilla Minus One is a fantastic film, and it's done fantastically based on the characters and the story itself of the characters. Godzilla just happens to be in that story. And the same thing applies here. So after I saw Godzilla Minus One, and then I came then I came across this. It's like maybe I should give kaiju mangas another shot. And then I came across this, and then this reminds me a lot of Godzilla Minus One. Um, though the characters in here aren't as fleshed out as Godzilla Minus One, but we're talking about a film, which means if that film was turned into a manga, it would go on for chapters upon chapters upon chapters before it actually got into the meat of things. For this one, I only got into like 5 chapters, and that was it. So I probably haven't even gotten to the meat of things yet. Plus, this is kind of very different from Godzilla Minus One. It doesn't focus on the destruction and depravity of a disaster situation and how it ruined the lives of others. It kind of does that, but it also does the fact of it's a good thing as well. because the people in this destruction used the attack of the kaiju to reinvest in their neighborhood. Because unlike Godzilla, this gigantic monster is considered a fertility monster, as its body dissolves, and the dissolved body, the components, the bones, and everything, kind of give life to trees and give life to sea creatures and give life to everything around it. It's a very strange monster. It actually makes things better rather than make it radiation and work worse. So this is, I found that to be very fascinating. So moving on from the first image, we then get into the next image, and the next image, from the very first image, shows the destruction of this kaiju, called Tima, or Gaea Tima. And the first image that you would read within this manga is the destruction of the houses, destruction of the village, and then shows the military coming in to try to deal with this giant creature. So this is very much a prelude to situations that are going to happen down the road. So the military comes in. They decide to bomb out Tima. They don't know anything about this creature. No one knows anything about this creature. Basically, I just gave a little spoilers into what this creature is and what not really. The mystery of Tima is still beyond me at this point, but it just shows up one day, no reason, starts destroying buildings and stuff. Military sent in to deal with the problem after they figure it out. Obviously, they'll figure it out before anyone else does because it's invading a foreign land, and it came upon their radar, either from the water or from the sky, probably from water. And then the military was sent in to deal with it. During this period, we get to meet characters. We get to meet a mother and her daughter. And one of these characters is, well, not one of the little girl is the main protagonist of the story, Miyako. And she's basically there to save her mother, who a building fell upon during the wake of the monster. The monster woke up, a huge tsunami hit, and a mother got trapped under. The mother's about to die. She's trying to break the mother from under the house. Um, she can't get her out. Guillotine is showing up. Buildings are being crashed. The tsunami hit. I should emphasize something that's very important, though. Tsunamis are a common occurrence in Japan. Tsunamis happen all the time. Not like every single time, but it mostly happens within the island of Okinawa and other places as well. But mostly on the islands, tsunamis happen a lot. So it's a common thing for a tsunami to happen in Japan. So most of their stories, even Godzilla stories, when you see anything with regards to destruction, if it's not nuclear based, it's based on a tsunami, because anything that has to do with an island and a monster is typically related towards the type of destruction that happens during that period or periods, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road. Most of these things are associated with what are called tsunamis. Tsunamis are common natural disasters that happen in Japan. So in this case, it's appropriate for this story because unlike Godzilla, which is based on nuclear power and nuclear entry and destruction of nuclear warfare during the World War, or the aftermath of the World War, that was that manga's focus before it became an anime. This manga's focus is tsunamis, a typical tsunami that happens, dealing more with current natural disasters rather than something from old school. So that's another thing, education that I learned from this as well. After I did some research into the type of destruction, is this related to nuclear power? And now this is related mostly to tsunamis and natural disasters that happen through hurricanes and earthquakes and so on and so forth. So Gintama is represented in this scenario as a form of nature. Um, and as you see in this scene here, he's about to crush the village and stuff, but all of a sudden it just tilts over and falls down. and it slowly but surely starts to dissolve for no reason whatsoever, and it's not described for the reason why this happened. Eventually, a huge tsunami wave happens, hits the town. The girl gets washed away in the water. Mom gets washed away in the water. I'm not sure if mom is dead or not, but the girl gets washed away in the water. Mom gets washed away in the water. And then you see this gigantic eye being dissolved, and the whole body is being dissolved, like almost instantaneously, for reasons that can't be described. The monster just heals over, stands up, falls down, and then start to dissolve just like that. A huge giant creature. Now, the compounds or the elements of this creature are unknown. Um, its organs are unknown. Its metabolism is unknown. Its spine is unknown. All that's known is that whatever makes up this creature, whatever this creature is formed from, it's beneficial towards the earth, the ground, towards the water, towards the sky. It basically makes things better. I'm not sure if this thing was formed directly from sand and from wind and from air. Maybe it was formed through five elements of the planet itself and how it came to be, and then it just exists and then just disappears. There's a lot to unpack with regards to this creature. The mystery lies within this manga is the creature itself. What is it? Where did it come from? How did it came to attack this island? Why did it just fall over? Because it didn't fall over because it got destroyed by the military. It just fell over because it fell over and decided it wanted to start dissolving itself for no reason, and not in the form of dissolving itself in acid form. I'm talking about dissolving itself in it's the only thing being dissolved, and everything around it is not being affected. Everything has to deal with the effect of the liquid that it's dissolving into, but it's not corrosive, it's not destructive, it's not radioactive, and it's not turning anyone into mutated creatures or anything. It's it's like living or liquid fertilizer. It doesn't really make sense, but it's not normal liquid fertilizer. It's liquid fertilizer that would turn like a normal fish into a gigantic fish. So it's basically a type of compound that would make anything that's organic in form. I'm not sure about uh, non-organic, but organic in form, um, expand in size, three or four, maybe even five times their normal size, or the development of a specific type of group of animals to multiply like 10 times the normal rate. Let's say you have a sea of fish that are about 70 or 80 different fish in the ocean. Not different, but 70 or 80 of the same fish in the ocean. And then this liquid hits the fish. Well, that's 70 times, 100, or maybe not even 100, 70 times 10. 10 times that. So now you have 170 fish. So the multiplication of this thing is ridiculous. Um, but it's mostly based on size factor, not on amount. So has this compound got on? Another mystery of this manga that doesn't really explain what Gayatama is or Giyatama is that this product, this liquid that Giyatama is made out of, or this compound that Giyatama is made out of, once it gets onto a person, that person doesn't seem to be affected by this. Human beings don't seem to be affected by this product, or the waves of this product once it hits the water and is washed away in the ocean. So if their skin isn't affected, their body isn't affected, but lower life form creatures are affected. At least that's what it seems. So maybe this thing is prejudiced against human beings. It doesn't affect human beings, but it affects other forms of life, plant life and sea life. Maybe that's its thing. It doesn't affect people, but it affects everything else around people. So in this next scene, we see a girl, um, some random girl from when Miyoko was young, and then now Miyoko is older, saying goodbye to Miyoko. And she gets on a bus and she leaves for town. or she leaves town and goes off to a university. Before that, she says goodbye to Maryoku. They were childhood friends, but in some weird way, she sees Maryoku as this person that's lucky because her father got his hand injured due to saving Maryoku when she was young. So she kind of blames Maryoku for this, but at the same time, she doesn't blame Maryoku. But it's very condescending in her behavior. Another mystery of this manga is that you cannot tell if people are actually pissed off at each other or if they're actually thankful towards each other. Um, this girl came across very much as someone that didn't want to have anything to do with this village anymore after the disaster and wanted to find a way out. But at the same time, she is happy that Miyako is able to find some type of relief and comfort in having a life after Gyatama. She basically says Miyako is able to make a living from whatever happened to the disaster with Gyatama many years ago. So this is the Miyako of an older age, and she's going to Tsukuba, and that's the stop where she works off. So another thing with regards to this anime that I love very well, and I point out in manga sometimes in animes and as well as games certain use of art forms and art perspectives. Now this is not one of those mangas that focus mostly on perspective. It's focused mostly on character and character positioning more than anything. Where the character is positioned based on frames, where the text is positioned based on frame, which is the best shot for a character to be set based on the frame of the panel. And in this case, I like the shot of this image of her on the left side, the text on, I mean, her on the right side, the text on the left side, and the upper shot shows the image of the vehicle on also the right and buildings on the left. When you do any form of art, you weigh certain things out. You weigh how they fit on a panel or panels, and you weigh the overall panel of a page to see which is where's the most amount of weight at. Left, the right, the top, the bottom. And if there's too much weight of a character's existence on one side and a lot of empty space on the other, then that's kind of a bad thing. You must have a balanced way with regards to presenting a product on a panel when you're doing any form of art. If you're going to put a type of art that's unbalanced and you put a lot of image on one side and not many on the other, and you only put a couple of text, then the whole intention is to leave that thing unbalanced, to give weight to the unbalance with regards to the situation of what's going on in the anime, and to present it by using the form of the character as the way to show that imbalance and shift. Now, if that's not what's present and you do that, then you don't know what the hell you're doing as an artist. There's also this anime does also have a good perspective eye. It's not an anime based. I mean, it's not a manga based on perspective more than the other two, and not, I would say, based on Suzume as well. It's not as good as Suzume when it comes to perspective as well, but it's good when it comes to zoom in and zoom out shots with regards to positioning, worm's eye view, bird's eye view. I believe it does a far better job than those mangas and the way Suzume does it. Why? It's because when you get a view from this character position, this character is sitting in the chair, and you're looking from more of a lower angle level view with regards to the fish is looking up as she's watching as the bus goes by. So you're getting almost like a straight shot of her sitting down, but at the same time, she's not technically straight. She's at a somewhat elevated angle, and you're viewing her at a somewhat worm's eye view, but not completely worm's eye view. You're viewing her at a good focal, narrow eye lens worm's eye view. So you're getting an idea of the distance between the top and the distance between the bottom from a worm's eye view, but you're also getting that worm's eye view being balanced within motion from top to bottom, slowly but surely forming up to the horizon line before it becomes center horizon line, and then it starts to go lower again. So you could see it as you're presented within this shot itself. The skill level of this artist is pretty good to understand how to put things in perspective with regards to upper shot and lower shot, because nothing in reality works in worm's eye or bird's eye view. If you're not directly below it or directly above it, it doesn't shot up that way. Especially if you're using something from the point of view of a God's eye perspective or a lens eye perspective. Because if you're doing something from a God's eye perspective or a lens eye perspective that is circular, and you're squeezing things inward, going from top right and top left and bottom left and bottom right towards the center here. And then you're using the horizon line, which goes directly across here, to try to balance out what's from bottom and that's what's from top coming down to the center. But if your character is looking up, then primarily everything that you must see is from the worm's eye view. So the products that's being seen mostly has to be that which is from the top going towards the middle. So in dominance, the upper portion has to be more at play than the lower portion. That's why majority of this image shows the upper than lower. But at the same time, you get enough of the bottom to feel like it's an entirely whole image rather than it's completely dominated by the worm's eye view, showing most of the top. So that's very rarely done. Most people either go 100% top or 100% bottom, directly under the character or directly above the character, but never pull it back from the point of view of a camera looking directly forward. And those who do it don't know how to do it as well as this person did it here. So the person who does the artwork for this manga is pretty damn good when it comes to perspective based on distance, at least worm's eye and bird's eye view. And so moving on from that, we get to the next scene and another good perspective shots. 2-point perspective works very well. Something I like to do myself all the time. It's not very difficult. You just see the horizon line. You move forward from there, and you move forward here, move forward here, and you move forward here, and you move forward here. And in reality, that's how things work. You have a line. You see a person looking from where they're standing here. Let's say their feet is below this line, and they're standing here, and their eye length is right here, and they're looking directly right here. Well, everything based on what they're looking, or at least a little bit above here, will fall into this realm. Now let's see they're not looking there. Either way, you want the shot to be here. What you would do, you would put a circle around here, and that circle will be like the furthest part of an orange. If you ever sliced into an orange, cut an orange in half, then you bend your head down, look all the way down from where the closest part of the orange. The closest part of the orange will be here in this arc form, where the skin is. And then as you're looking down at the orange on this flat plane, the end of the orange will be over here. And then you put a circle here, and that circle will represent where the upper portion of that orange would have been placed if you didn't cut it in half from the upper curve portion here. Thus you see it, because it's an orange is like a gigantic circle. So then when you're doing a perspective based on 2-point, you go this way, this way, this way, this way, this way, and it's going outwards towards you because it's a circle going outwards towards you from its furthest distance, circular wise, like this, circular wise, getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it gets towards you. That's how perspective works, and it's 2 points perspective. So it's very important to understand that if you're going to get into perspective, doing any type of art or taking photographies or taking any type of pictures. It's not entirely that way, but that's one of the main factors with regards to perspective, is understanding your distance and understanding your position and understanding how to see things in perspective. Using an orange is a great way to see so, because orange is a great part of nature, and it falls into the Fibonacci sequence, and it falls into rate of change, but it's very systematic and it's very singular. It does. Most orange rarely leave or deviate from their normal pattern. It's very organic in that way, and it's very useful in that way to in order to get a clear idea of the world itself and gravity itself and neutrality itself and system itself, as well as distance and foreshortening. So those things work. Moving on from there, we get into the next scene. One thing I would say with regards to this manga that's not good is that the characters and the character choice and design aren't exactly the best in the world. These characters look like they were very cartoony, and that was probably the intentions, because this person knows who made this manga that their focus is not within character design. Their focus is in the world that's around the characters, such as the artwork of the world around the characters and not the characters themselves. This form of art with regards to characters is very Charlie Brownish, and I would say that's not bad, but maybe that's the intention of this type of manga. Maybe they wanted to have a character that looks this way. Maybe they wanted them out to look this way. Maybe the intention is not to focus on the people in this manga, but to focus on the monsters. And like I said, that reminds me a lot of Godzilla Minus One. It is not the people. I mean, reminds me a lot of Godzilla Minus One in the form that Godzilla Minus One wasn't about Godzilla, it was about the people. Whereas this is kind of the reverse when it comes to uh, the image as well as the world. It's not really about the people, even though it is. It's more about the story than about the people. What's going on with the story of the people inside of it. The mystery of Tima, the mystery of what's going on in the world, more than the mystery of who these people are. If you go through what the mother's doing, if you go through what the daughter's doing, um, by the time you get to chapter 7, you probably won't care, and you would want to know what's going on with Tima more than anything. But at the same time, this manga does know how to pull you in with regards to characters as well, how the characters are positioned. I think the perspective that the artist used is what pulled me into this manga more than anything. The shots that we're using, the art style that we're using, the thoughts when thoughts didn't need to be expressed in the world in words, they were expressed during using the image of a character, such as the girl, how her face looked in one scene versus how her face looked in the next scene versus how her face looked away from the scene. So this is a good presentation of this. One scene, her face looks very kiddish. Another scene, she looks very serious. Another scene, you can't see her face at all, but you're kind of seeing from based on the first two images what might be going on in the character's head. So all these things play out in a very beautiful way, in a very beautiful pattern. She can't think of a way to write a story about Tima, or should I say she's an artist and she's trying to draw another image for her mother with regards to Tima. They've been making money off Tima after the attack. The town has been flourishing due to the attack of the Tima, because like I said before, the Tima is not like really like Godzilla. Its powers fertilize things, which makes the town able to get a lot more money and sell a lot more products, and thus build their homes and places far easier. Whatever the compound that Tima is made out of is able to be used in multiple ways. So she's been making art for her mother with regards to models, and she's been clay making, and she's a clay maker. Um, uh, and what she does is, well, maybe she does more than clay making. Maybe she does like actually chiseling as well. Um, but she's been, well, clay making, chiseling is part of clay making. Well, maybe she does like old school chiseling as well, not just regular clay making. But she's been designing these things. She's a designer, and she gets the idea. She trying to illustrate the whole thing, but she can't think about a good one for this one. She's trying to reinvigorate her situation and reinvent herself, just to figure out a new type of Tima design. And then this guy pops up out of nowhere looking for her specifically, and mother told her that this guy is a researcher. Uh, um, Tatsukune. I don't remember what his first name is, but I know he's a researcher working for an organization. And he used to live in this neighborhood when he was a kid. Tima did attack his town during this period, or should I say, attacked this neighborhood that he came from when he was young. And he returned back here to speak to her specifically. I don't know why. The manga never states why, but he was fascinated in her artwork with regards to Tima. But it's more than that. I believe he's looking for something in relations to Tima. He figured it might be here, and eventually the girl tells him there's nothing here to look into with regards to Tima. There's nothing to research here. We just make little model statues of this creature and sell to tourists. So the whole point of this town is that this town has now become a tourist location. Um, Tima, this gigantic monster, attacked their island or the village, and then from that point on, city folks and other town folks and people from all over the world come to this place, this location, to figure out why a giant-sized kaiju type monster has attacked this area specifically and no other part of the world. Or at least the manga doesn't say attack any part of the world. So she kind of gets pissed off with the guy, with regards to this guy. Tell him like, listen, you're trying to make a, this creature Gintama that seems like it's a saint and stuff, but it's not a saint. A lot of people died in that tsunami due to the Gintama, and so directly afterwards, an old man pops in and says Gintama has returned. Turns out it's not Gintama that returned. Turns out it's a different kaiju that returned. And I should also point out that during this point where the manga goes into the whole thing of Tima returning after so many years is 10 years. It's been 10 years since Tima originally attacked the village. 10 years. So Miyako is 10 years older than, let's say she's 10 years old. She was 10 years old when it happens. I'm not sure her actual age. The manga never said her actual age. Let's say she was 10 years old. So 10 years additional to that is now she would be 20 years old. At least that's what I'm assuming, that she's 20 years old. And when she was young, she was either 8 or she was 10. But since most manga like to go into the whole teenage thing, I would say she was 8. So at this point, Miyako should be either 18 or 17 or 18, or she should be 20. If it's not based on 7, 8, 9, it's based on 10. So she should be 20 years old at this point. Our friend is going off to university, which gives me the idea that she's of that age to get to university anyway. She's either in her late teens or she's 20 years old. And the old man comes in and says Tima has returned. Turns out it's not Tima, it's another giant kaiju. After 10 years, another one pops up, completely destroys a boat. Everyone is evacuated, told to evacuate to get the hell out of the village. Another wave of monster attack has happened after 10 years. It's a surprising thing to everyone, but after 10 years of dealing with the situation, the military has set up a good way of evacuating people based on this situation. But as in all things, people will charge forward and race towards an end or towards an evacuation port like any normal person would in an extreme situation. So everyone evacuates, the monster goes in, DEFCON charges happen. I'm not sure why I use DEFCON charges. It just makes sense to use it. They drop charges or set bombs or missiles. It hits the monster, no effect. The monster raises from the water. Turns out it looks like a damn creature from the Blue Lagoon, a sea monster. Kind of look like Titanosaurus, to be honest with you, but not really. It's walking. It has hands. It has feet. Originally, it had a body that looked like a fish, but then all of a sudden, it got out the water. It looked like it has hands and feet. I'm not sure about that either. Maybe the intentions of the manga was to make it look like it didn't have hands and feet, but as it rose through the water, it had hands and feet. What is amazing about this monster design that I really like is that it has a ridiculously long tail. and this ridiculously long tail is what propels it forward. And just one swing of the tail destroys the boardwalk. And moving on from there, I really like the shot as well. They could have made the shot anything, but they decided to make an overhead view of the tail and the monster destroying the crosswalk or the boardwalk. Moving on from there, we get to see another shot. This one is a close-up shot of the character's face. The design is in very parallel forms. From the top panels to the lower panels, we get a close-up of eye view of character design. The character studies with regards to this would probably be how to create a shot with regards to a person's close-up of their eyes versus a person's not close-up of their eyes from a distant shot. Um, I would say this is pretty good. Not so great, but it's pretty good. How you would angle the eyes to look based on where you want them to be positioned, how you would not angle them where you don't want them to be positioned, and how you want it to be seen, how you want the image to be expressed. This could have been done in many ways, but it was done in this way. The character is seen close up of the eyes, close up of the hair, and the scene, and she's seen in a kind of faded way or a kind of dissolved way or a flashback way, where the emphasis is on the ball itself. That's the more powerful, important thing. This little circular ball right in the center, and her face isn't present. It's like she's psychically predicting or psychically forming around this thing, or this is an image of her telling a story of this thing. So the present of this character's face and this character design can be formed in three different ways: a person telling a story from the past, a person using telekinetic powers and in order to show that form, or a person simply to represent something fading away and something is being pushed towards the front. So based on perspective shots, this could be something in a great distance in a room somewhere, and the little forms of white around it could be the forms of this character fading away, going into the room right here. That's one way of seeing it. But in this case, I believe the obvious is more present, whereas the white represents a different form of light that's around this little ball, as well as around different objects. And the face represents the person's kind of reminding herself or telling herself from the past of something that's happening. So I like this shot because the shot can represent many things. In many cases, a lot of people wouldn't understand what this is supposed to mean, or how you could use something like this in many forms, and not many people do that anyway, or do it well. Here it can, I would say, it's halfway done well, because it can be a little confusing with regards to what the hell is going on, what this represents, but at the same time, it's obvious what this is. Um, I only state this is because this can be done in many ways, and you can get many ideas from just doing something in this way when it comes to any type of action. So that's another reason why Gaea is on my top list, just because the art form and the art style that was used and the different positions of how they present certain shots is done fantastically, especially when it comes to things related to monsters or things related towards characters in situations with regards to monsters. So here you see the ball. The previous emphasis of the ball is that she's remembering this thing of this ball that fell or came out of her from the sky or from this creature, and then it falls to the ground or it falls into the water and then takes form and becomes Tima. Um, the anime doesn't tell you what the hell's going on and how this happens. It just shows you. So you're automatically assuming, okay, so Tima isn't really a creature that just showed up to this village or this island where this village is, or this town where this creature showed up to. Tima is kind of like a science experiment, or it's kind of like an alien entity, or it's kind of like something that's unknown from the unknown that just forms in reality. And the anime isn't going to, or should I say the manga, isn't going to tell you these things until you get towards the end. And the end meanings like many chapters thereafter. The first couple of chapters, first 3 chapters aren't going to do it justice. Maybe even the first 10 chapters won't do it justice. But moving on from that, we get to see the kaiju battle of Tima. Tima takes out the kaiju. Tima spits fire. The kaiju gets dissolved by fire. This is a fire breathing creature, but not in the traditional fire breathing sense. As fire breathing comes in the form of circular little flame balls, and I guess those are the exploding acid balls. And directly after he heat them up, and then they turn into flames that becomes like a fire of a dragon fire. So it burns the creature. After burning the creature, um, the villagers say, "Oh, Tima saved us" and stuff, and then all of a sudden Tima stop munching on the creature, and that's that. And they're basically looking at Tima feeding on this creature and say, "Well, maybe Tima really isn't here to save us at all. If it's just chomping down on another monster for its survival, maybe Tima isn't what people think it is. Maybe it's not a creature designed to protect this village. Maybe this whole village here is just its territory. Maybe this whole thing is an experiment." Nothing is explained. All that's explained so far is that you met certain characters. You know that there's a giant kaiju. You know that certain situations happening. You know there's an evacuation plan. You know that this monster has a type of fertility towards it that is able to make the natural things become greater, bigger, larger, or even more potent. You know that certain characters are the main protagonists. The main protagonists of certain characters are in the story to drive the story forward, but you don't know exactly what the hell is going on completely. So moving on from that, we get to see more villagers trying to kill Gintama, and because they want the village to get even richer. It doesn't really make sense why they would want to destroy Gintama again, because as I said before, Gintama can just dissolve his body and go into the ground or back into the ocean, and that's that for that. So they've seen this before, and so it was kind of wild to watch this image of them trying to destroy the creature, knowing that if the creature can withstand like military plane bombs and stuff, and blast from other gigantic kaiju type creatures, and why would they think like them using drills or hammers or anything or spikes, that any of that natural normal human stuff would actually do anything? But it's the behavior of the people in this manga. So moving on from that, we get a little context with regards to um, what was his name again? I forgot his name. You're trying to remember every single name of every character in every manga or anime. It's not going to happen. Tatsukuni's. You get to realize Tatsukuni's family heritage. Apparently, Tatsukumi is part of Matsushima company, a company that was stationed within this village. Very rich people. They all got destroyed by the tsunami, and only Tatsukuni managed to survive the whole destruction. After his family got killed, he became an orphan, and so the guy is saying like, why is he complaining after your company, after Tima kind of destroyed his family? Um, the Matsushima company should be happy that they're able to make profit from the destruction of everything that's happening. This guy doesn't understand that this man literally lost his parents, but he automatically assumes Matsushima. Anyone who's a Matsushima is just a greedy person who just wants money. Anyway, that's the reason why Tatsukuni is there. So moving on from that, we get to see even more information with regards to Gintima. Miyako finds the little ball and it's on the ground, picks it up. She doesn't know what it is. She just find it to be weird. She thought about it and she she gets this revelation that maybe it's something that has to do with Gaea. She doesn't know for sure. Um, Tasukuni shows up and says, "Do you believe that that thing that you found is actually related to Gaea?" The girl says, "Yes." He says, "How?" Because she went to wash her laundry, and then all of a sudden, Gaea started to form inside of her laundromat. So that little object creates Gaea. But how does it create Gaea? Does it just create Gaea by contact with water, or does it create Gaea by contact of friction, or by electricity and friction, or how does it work? So moving on from that, we get to discover that the thing, the little object that she found, came directly from her and her alone. It came out of her mouth. She coughed it up, and it was on the ground. And she basically says, "Well, it came from inside me. I don't know what the hell's going on." But directly after I started to do my laundry, it was in my pocket, and it got into the laundry, and then all of a sudden, Gaea showed up in the laundry. She doesn't know how, but it's just there. And then all of a sudden, these two other strange people came into the house. One, a researcher named for Tasukuni, called Tagago, or yeah, Tagaho. I think that's his name, Tagaho. I forgot the name of the girl. Shogo, what? Shigawa Michiro. I'll just call her Michiro. And okay, Tagao. Okay. So yeah, I'm not gonna remember these two characters, to be honest with you. That's not the point of this video, is to remember these two characters. They will become remembered if this manga becomes greater than it is. So far, the main focus is Miyako, not those around it. So two additional characters show up, and these two people aren't what you think they are. And it's like I was predicting before. The guy, the researcher, Tasukuni, isn't who he is either. Turns out he's been researching this not just because he's a researcher. He wants to know more about Gaea. Turns out he kind of been circling in on Miyako's point for quite some time. It's not explained why he's been investigating Miyako, but we get to learn that this is one of the reasons why he's investigating Miyako. It seems that Gaea can take different forms: large, small, gigantic. It all depends on the circumstance. So Gaea starts to chase after Miyako. Miyako then says, "Why is it chasing me?" I think the girl that dragged her into the car after they tried to escape charging Gaea in little baby form, stated that maybe the thing considers you its mother, since the little object that came out of her mouth literally was this metallic little thing that formed out of Gaea, formed out of her body and created Gaea. So the, the complications of the story is several things. What's Gaea? But it's now, what's the girl? Is this a normal girl? Did someone experiment on her at some point in the past? Is this just a freak phenomenon? She just maybe ate something bad one day that she found somewhere that was stashed in a cereal box or something, and someone got shot up in a building. They couldn't figure out a way to get rid of it, so they stored it in some cereal box. She went off to grab some cereal box when she was young from someone's apartment or someone's office or someone's research facility. Decided to have some cereal. Fell in her cereal. She ate it. She swallowed it. Blah blah blah. Something like that. That's quite silly. Maybe something like that, or maybe something far more complicated. We don't know. All we know is that Miyako is no longer considered a normal person. in this scenario, because people just don't spit out objects that turn into giant kaijus. So it's then shown that Mr. Tatsukuni is from an organization called Fun, and this organization is its own little variation, or kind of reminds me of Monarch from the Godzilla franchise. And that's where I would close out this manga for right now, and then get straight into Shizume no Tojimari. Um, I was thinking maybe I should go straight into the next manga directly after. Yeah, I think I'll go straight into the next manga directly after, and then I'll get into Shizume. So, moving on from that, we then go into, because this was almost an hour, so I'll try to make the next one real fast. So that was Tima. Very good manga, very good perspective in art, very done very well. You don't know what the hell's going on. You're trying to figure out what's going on. It's not about the giant kaiju. It's about the mystery of what's going on with the giant kaiju, what's going on with the girl. So the story shifted from the mystery of what's going on in this world, with relations to the kaiju, to more of what's going on in this world with relations to the kaiju and with relations to Miyako. So Miyako, who was kind of a boring character at the start, starts to become more of an interesting factor throughout the story. And many different people they came across throughout the manga, from the mother to the friend to Tatsukune to the villagers. Um, each one of these characters started to present a type of fleshing out towards the character of Miyako and fleshing out towards the story, with regards to what's happening, who certain people are, where the story is going. So it's done in a very well manner. So moving on from that, I'm going straight to the next manga. And I would say amongst the manga, even though Gaea was, in my opinion, the best of the manga so far for December 2023, the second would come in line would be, I would say it could be considered cringy, but at the same time, every single manga is falling into this category nowadays. I don't know what the hell is going on in the manga arena or in any arena whatsoever with regards to uh, stories of reincarnation. I'll put it like that. This is a story of reincarnation. Another reincarnation. A reincarnation as a slime. Reincarnation of the great hero. I must take down the evil warlord sort of reincarnation. The time I was reincarnated as a half elf. Time I was reincarnated as a slime. Time I was reincarnated as a girl. The time I was reincarnated as the evil wizard or as the fat warlord. Everything seems to be a reincarnation story, or get sucked into a world where they're reincarnated. So in this scenario, this is not a reincarnation, or this falls into the similar one with regards to many reincarnation stories. This is the one that a lot of people deviate from, what many people deviate to because they're tired of reincarnation stories. This is more like a mysterious object pops up in my world one day, and the mysterious object is a dungeon, and this dungeon is a real life dungeon, but it's very reminiscent of a fictitious world's dungeon from a video game. So this whole stuff is real world dungeons pop up in the real world, but the creatures inside aren't exactly what you would consider real monsters based in the logic of what real monsters are. It's based on logic of what mythological monsters are. So we have real dungeons popping up in real time, and people dealing with real dungeons in real time, but the creatures inside are very fictitious and very mythological. Minotaurs, hydras, goblins, wizards, witches, the whole nine yards. So no one knows what the hell is going on until you get deeper into the story and you realize there's no actually explanation into what this place is. It's only defined as a dungeon simply because it has all things classification towards what a dungeon is: bosses, treasures, scaling levels, um, attributes, so on and so forth. So the beginning of this manga, which is called Saisho de Saisoku no Mugen, or Saikyou, Saikyou de Saisoku no Mugen. In this case, I will call it Saisoku no Mugen. I won't say, or maybe I should just say Saikyou, Saiko Saisoku no Mugen. Another good way to remember this is the word Sai is used twice for both the first two words, and of course Mugen is well, you can remember Mugen from Samurai Champloo, or you can remember Mugen from the games or video games, created fight video games of certain characters. So that's another fun way to remember this manga's name, is to understand that you say Sai twice, and you add Kyo onto one of them, and Soku onto the next. So if you can't remember anything with regards to the entire name, you could just say Sai and Kyo, and then Mugen. Or you could say Saiso no Mugen. Either way, you'll get it right. Or at least people will know that what you're saying. So this is Saikyou de Saiso no Mugen, and this is about dungeons in real life, and this is about elevating to becoming the greatest dungeon master of all time. Basically clearing the dungeon and being recognized as the strongest hero, but not recognized as the most famous hero, even though he's the strongest hero. So this is another one of those stories. However, this is done in a very interesting way. Most of the stories with regards to guys becoming the strongest and stuff is always boring in some ways, in some fashion, because they don't know how to tell the story with regards to those things. This one seems to be able to tell the story quite well, because it doesn't focus primarily entirely on a character. It's more about focusing on what the dungeon is and what benefits you could get from the dungeon and how people are in relations to the dungeon. So it's not about primarily about the character. It's more about how the character operates within the story. So it's very much kind of like how Gaea was. It's not really entirely about the character Maryoku. It was more about the story itself. And same thing is happening here. Even though it seems like it's very much about our main protagonist over here, Sakura, um, it doesn't seem to be completely about Sakura. Even though the center and more the focus of this manga is about Sakura. So in comparison to Gaea, I would say Saikyou, the Saisho no Mugen protagonist versus Gaea protagonist. His story is more is more of a personal journey. So this is more of a character story than it is of, well, is it really? Because at a certain point, okay. So let me get into this just because I'm thinking way too much into this. So we first see the first image of the story, and it shows a character. He gets expelled from school. His name is Sakura Makoto. He's 16 years old. He gets expelled from school for getting into a fight. He defended someone. He got into a fight. The person he got into a fight with turned out to be the son of the head of the PTA or something like that. So he got expelled simply because of that. He says life sucks. The first time he stands up to bullies, and this is what happens. Blah blah blah. The bully then show up to the party. Decides to rub it in his face and say, "Oh, this is what happens when you want to mess with the son of the that is in charge of PTA. You get expelled. You lose it. Blah 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 blah." He goes home, he tells his parents that he got expelled. I'm surprised that this is one of those mangas that actually has parents in it that are still alive. Most mangas don't even decide to offer the existence of ones having two parents that are still alive. Usually it's more like some type of depressing, obvious cliche garbage that one parent is dead and the other have to struggle on their own, or both parents are dead and the kids have to struggle on their own. You know, the standard thing, typical thing, not the reality thing, is most kids who play video games, their parents are very much alive, blah, blah, blah. So in this situation, it's kind of spot on. You know, his parents are alive, they're hardworking people, blah, 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 moving forward. And then all of a sudden, um, the gates start to appear, or the doors, as I would like to call it. These doors start to appear all over the place. And all over the place means all over the world. This is not like Gintama where the creature is only designated to a specific village in a specific town in Japan. This is a worldwide event. These gates open all over the world. One pops up within a parking lot, one pops up on the roof, one pops up in a major aquarium, one pops up underwater. These things pop up anywhere. And this one, it popped up on the roof of his house, of his apartment house. He decides to go in there and be stupid and go right in there, not knowing the dangers of what's in there. He read before on a text message that a lot of people are getting injured from going into this place, and some are reported of dying, blah blah blah. But he then discovers that what's inside of this place is called a dungeon. There's a dungeon boss. There are enemies in there, and he plays a lot of video games, virtual reality video games. So for him to finally realize that the idea of video games have now become a reality, that video games no longer require you to put on a VR set to be interactive. That's what, at least that's what he's thinking. He doesn't understand that, one, he's not wearing a VR headset. Two, I mean, he's well aware he's not wearing one, but he doesn't understand mentally that this is a real door that popped up in real time. And once he goes through his door, there are real things on the other side. He doesn't understand the dangers of this because he's just a punk kid. But at the same time, even a punk kid will realize, you just don't go into a place by yourself, without some form of backup. So this is what took me out of the story for quite some time, and then it got me back into the story once I realized, well, even though this kid is not the sharpest tool in the shed, the story really isn't about him. This is where I was leading with regards to, is Miyako more protagonist than this guy is? Is this guy more protagonist than Miyako is? Is this guy more character-driven story than a story-driven story? It's hard to tell when it comes to, I mean, it's easy to tell when it comes to Miyako's story, but it's hard to tell when it comes to this guy Sakura. Because as soon as he start making dumbass decisions, and the story is focusing on him getting bullied, him getting expelled out of school, it became a character study. It was a character central focused story. But then it feels like it shifted into a story. And it became a mixture of both the character story and the general story. Because when he got into the dungeon, it was no longer about the character story. It was about the story. And that's another thing that's rare within manga. Very rarely do mangas mix two things together. They either go one way, hard, or the other way, hard. And when they do try to mix and have some type of fleshing out of character with regards to a story, they do a bad job of it because they don't know how to do it, because they're trying to please both sides of the fence. The same thing is happening here. But this is done in an interesting way that it knows how to separate those things. Not that it's perfect, but it knows. It's like this manga gives me this feeling like it knows how to separate both these things, though it doesn't do a great job at it, but it at least knows how to separate them. And how in the separation happens to be the door itself. The door itself is a representation of that how. The moment he walks through that dungeon door and enters this place, it's like the mood atmosphere within the manga changed. He doesn't change, his behavior doesn't change, but the story shifts because the existence of the world outside is not influencing what's going on in this world. And everything in this world is not influencing what's going on outside in the world with regards to what's happening in this world. What people do outside in this world with regards to what's going on inside of this world is not the same as what's going on inside of this world that's happening on the outside. I'll explain later. So, right, what I'm saying in regards to how the separation works is that he goes to fight this Minotaur, level 20. He's level 1. He gets his ass kicked, or should I say, he doesn't get his ass kicked. You would expect him to get his ass kicked. That's what I was expecting. No, this guy's peace out. He runs away. He runs away from the giant Minotaur. And then he finds the nearest object, or nearest monster that's very low level. He kicks that monster's ass, destroys that monster, and then he gets a random card or random skills from that monster. In this dungeon, one of the main rules of all these dungeons is that randomization of unique items, unique skills is given. Uh, that has nothing to do with levels, but it only has to do with skills. So he gets a random skill that allows him to level up the skill of leveling up 1,000 times your experience points, which is a rare skill itself. And even more rare is that the typical way to acquire such rare skills, it doesn't fall into the standards, obviously because it's random. So when he decided to hit this monster with his hands in order to destroy it, instead of using magic, for which he was, the moment he stepped through that door, he was given a set of magic skills. He didn't use magic to destroy the monster. He used his own fist to destroy the monster. Thus, he got the skill, 1,000 experience points. You could say it's because he was a dumbass that the game itself wanted to give him a handicap because he doesn't understand what he's doing. So I guess you could say the game thought that he was so stupid that it needed to give him 1,000 points experience because the game kind of knew he would take forever to get to where he was. But the game doesn't. The game is in some strange way that this feels like there's an AI manipulating everything, or some type of creature or entity or being manipulating everything and creating this world, because it didn't factor that this kid was actually smart in video games, that he would understand how to use that 1,000 times experience. So what the kid did is he ran away, peaced out, didn't fight the Minotaur, knew he was too weak, hit the Minotaur just to stun it, ran away, and he went back to a safe zone. And the safe zone is near the stairs, near the entrance towards where he entered the dungeon. The dungeon door opens up. The dungeon door leads to stairs. The stairs lead to the first room. Apparently, once you get towards the stairs, you can't go up the stairs because the stairs, going up the stairs, leads towards the door, entrance of the doorway. Very reminiscent of excelling to either heaven or going straight down to hell. So the door is kind of a no-no thing, or a pathway, a doorway to another dimension. So the door represents, or should I say the stairs to the door represents a transition point between reality and fantasy. So this game does, or should I say this manga does it well to show that this is a world of fantasy that this kid is in. He doesn't know it's a world of fantasy that's in, even though he knows there are fantastic beasts and fantasy type beasts in this world. But he doesn't know that this dungeon is playing things out like a video game. Though he knows it's like a video game, he doesn't understand that it's actually that's what's happening. He just knows that it's just playing out like a video game, but he doesn't know that it's playing out completely like that of a fantasy video game. He's just seeing it from the point of view of the rules of a fantasy video game, but he doesn't understand completely. Or maybe he does, but not to the degree that you, the audience, will understand that everything that's being presented is directly intentional or unintentional. All you could understand is that what's happening in the manga is what you would understand from playing games that have dungeons. So moving on from that, we get to see him using the same old strategy that many gamers have done in many video games. They run away from a monster, they hit the monster a couple of times, they get the monster's health down, eventually the monster die from hitting the monster's health. Obviously in some more tough games that does not work. You hit an enemy, the enemy doesn't go down, you run away, the enemy's health go right back up again. So in this scenario, that's what's happening here. He runs away from the enemy health is right back up again. But at least in his situation, every time he gets to a safe zone, he gets a hit off and stuff. He's able to kill various different monsters going along the way, such as bats, such as little slimes, and hitting those little small monsters along the way allowed him to level up his 1,000 experience enough to get past level 24. And when he got past level 24 and hit level 25, he destroyed the Minotaur with ease by just knocking his head off. Moving on to reality, we get to see the UN, a member from the UN, show up to the UN Parliament. And what he says is that magic is of this world is very questionable. We don't know what it is. We don't know its implication. We don't know anything. All we know is that we could use magic inside the dungeon in order to do things inside this dungeon. What we do know is that we could also use magic outside this dungeon, but we can only use it to present what's happening inside the dungeon. We also know we could use the products that we found from inside the dungeon for other external things, such as selling towards others so that they could use those things towards going into dungeons and finding things in dungeons, so on and so forth. It feels very much like a marketing thing that you found when people used to play Elden Ring and they were selling products in Elden Ring in order for you to beat the game. So it's very much reminiscent of marketing strategy used for beating games. But in this case, the whole idea of acquiring things and using powers outside of the dungeon is still yet unknown. All that is known is that you can show the presentation of that power and can use that power, but can it be effective in the world outside? That's yet to be seen. However, objects can be taken out of the said dungeon for money, for riches, maybe for even using towards making strong weapons and stuff. It's unclear what the direction of this manga is going. All that is known is that standard weapons from the outside world does not work inside of the dungeons. Rifles, shotguns, knives, berettas, the whole 9 yards, bombs, those things don't work inside the dungeons. So it's safe to say if the reality stuff doesn't work inside the dungeons, then the dungeon stuff won't work outside in reality as well. However, you can take those stuff outside of the dungeons and sell it in reality. Whether they work in reality is another story. So when this guy used his magic powers to present what magic is not the same as what him using it to actually do a magic thing. So I believe the power of the magic in this world can only be used inside the dungeons, and if you try to use the magic outside the dungeon, it won't work. Vice versa, you could bring weapons inside of a dungeon, a rifle and stuff, but the moment you try to use it on anything in the dungeon, you might get shot off, but the shot won't affect the enemies at all. So even if this guy was to use his magic and cast magic spells or use effective magic, it would do what the magic does. Let's say it's a fireball or ice attack. It would create icicles outside in the real world. However, it won't affect anything as in the way it affects things inside the dungeon. Same thing, vice versa. So that's what the manga is trying to tell you. Or at least that's what I'm getting with regards to the manga itself. So moving on from there, we get deeper into the story. We get to see, this is why I was saying this is probably more of a story, just like Tima, rather than a character story. Because we get another shift. We get to realize that from the representative of the UN's words that he's using freely to explore the dungeons and what items do you get. For what reasons are you doing it for? Are you doing this for dreams? Are you doing this for love? Are you doing this for fame? Are you doing this for freedom? Are you doing this simply for adventure? Or or is there a greater purpose for the reason why you do this? Many people do these things when they enter the dungeon. There are many reasons, and this is very true. There are many reasons why people play video games. There's no singular reason why a person play a video game in reality or virtual reality at all. Why does someone go towards playing video games? Hell, why does anyone go towards doing any specific thing for anything? Why does a person play soccer a lot? And why does a person who's definitely a pro level never play soccer professionally but only teaches soccer? Or has gone professional but decides to become a teacher rather than, invest in making money and fame off his profession? Why do people do the things they do when they could easily do it? There are certain characteristics that no one will ever understand of anyone, and the reason why they would do certain things, because people are just different that way. They're not built at it. We don't see the value in certain things that others see, because from their point of view, the value of those things are rotten to the core, or toxic, or hurt them some way in some form. So, unless you're that type of person, you wouldn't understand what I'm trying to say. Moving on from that, we get to see that the name given to these people who want fame, who want freedom, who want everything, they're called players. And players are individual. That's the name designated to those who enter the dungeon, which is a great thing to say. And I would say it's a fantastic thing to say, because the word player is a great word to use for anything video game like. You don't usually say user. You don't usually say gamers. You usually say players, because that's the best word to use. Players is not a singular type word. Player is a plural type word, even though it's also singular. It means more than one thing. It means user is more like someone who's an alien to the thing, a byproduct of the thing. I am playing this video game. I'm the person using this video game. Thus, I am the player. I'm using this video game. That's a Tron thing. That's a very alien thing. It's not really associated with that of a player. A player is more a designation of, I'm a person who's entered this world. I am the user, yes, 100%, but I'm more than that. I'm not a user as well. I'm an active participant. So that's why the word player is used more like gamers. Where if you say I'm a gamer, or hey, welcome all gamers to my clan and stuff, you're kind of singularizing the thing. Whereas if you say welcome all players to the thing, you're kind of saying, well, players is not just designated to the world. It's kind of like you've now entered the flesh of your avatar. Whereas gamers is more like of a user. You kind of align. I think that makes more sense. The gamer is more like something aligned towards the user, or it's an alignment towards the continuity of the word user. It's a fancy word. The word gamer is a fancy way of saying user. I think that's the best way to describe it. Whereas player is more like, it's continental wise. It's more avatar wise, without it being factox in, without that. So moving on from there, we get to go to the next section. It says 8 months later, this guy's been in the dungeon for 8 months. Haven't seen his parents for 8 months. He's cool with it. I don't know why, but he is. He meets certain people, and these people are different individuals on his journey along the way. Not so much important, but he saves them. They were about to die. He goes up to them and say, "Oh, what level are you?" And he asks them, and they say they're this level 20, level 30, level 50, so on and so forth. And then he tells them his level, and he says he's level, I think he said he was level 10,000. It's like, what? Everyone's level 100, level 20, level 30, level 40, level 50, level 100. no one has gotten to know level 10,000 already. So this thing just started like, it hasn't even been a year yet, and this dude is already at level 10,000. So he's spent his entire damn life inside this dungeon. To be honest, he's eaten food. He's went to his safe zone by the door, exit out the door. Probably went to the coffee shop or something like that. Got a donut, got a biscuit, sat down, fried some rice, ate some dinner, made some eggs, finished, went back in. That was this kid's life, for a good 8 months. So this guy is not the type that has a lot of problems that he has to deal with in reality other than bullying. So he spent his entire life inside here. So I would say, protagonist wise, I would say of many protagonists, he's not like. That's why I was deviating from the fact that this can't be a character story. If this guy is having it that, I mean, he doesn't have an easy life, but if this guy's character story is simply that he got bullied and then he went into this dungeon and then his life has changed, there's not much to tell with regards to the character. That's why I say doesn't feel that much like a character story, even though at points it does feel start off like one, but then it goes into a different direction. In this sense, I would say the story of Maryoku is better with regards to character and being a character story, but that also is not a character story as well. So both of these, I would say, aren't really character stories. So moving on from that, we get to see these characters. One is a fire user, one is ice user, so on and so forth. They're not really important. They're just people he met along the way, because the story isn't about them or about any individuals. Probably is not even about our protagonist. The story is about his journey. That's the main story. That's the main character of the story, not the person that's in the story. About the journey of this story, of this character in the story. It's like reading a book. You read a book about a character, and you realize there's not much to tell about this character, because this narrator is not narrating the story from the point of view of the character. Narrating is narrating the story from the point of view of the story, of telling about a character. So that's what's going on here. So moving on from that, we get to see even more characters, and this girl is an appraiser. I believe he's dropping off stuff to her, and she tells him that there's a dungeon where there's the king of slime that's never been defeated. Everyone has tried to defeat it, but it's never been defeated. He went off and said, well, I'm going to defeat it, and then he ends up defeating it. That's the end of that chapter. I'm already past chapter 1 and chapter 2, to be honest with you. And after defeating this king slime, he ends up having the ability to fly, but it's not really an ability to fly, it's the ability to levitate, so he's kind of disappointed. I think he says something like it might take some time for him to actually get to the level of flying with this ability. He might have to level it up a couple, so that when he goes from levitation to even higher levitation to the ability to fly, it might be one of those things. It might be like in actual Final Fantasy, where you have a materia item, and the materia says on it float, and then under that first designated word float, you get to see the float level 2, and then under that one, under float level 2, it shows something like saying projection, float projection, and under that it says fly. So maybe that's how things are going on. You get to have the float ability, and then float ability elevates to the next ability, and then it elevates towards fly. So that's what's going on. So this is following kind of like a Final Fantasy, or kind of like a Dungeons and Dragons kind of mythology with regards to how things play out with magic wise. It's never just as simple as in you having an ability and you're able to use the ability. You have to level it up. So there's a leveling system for magic as well in here. So moving on from that, we get to see another dungeon that pops up in the middle of a park, and this dungeon is known as the H rank Red Shadow Dragon Dungeon. And why it's called the Shadow Dragon Dungeon is that it's never been defeated. It's the most famous dungeon in all of Japan, because this most famous dungeon in all of Japan is the only dungeon that no one has ever defeated since the beginning of these strange door popping up. And so it's been like, even though he's been in the dungeon for 8 months, I believe this door popped up about maybe a month or two before he went into the dungeon. So he's probably been in the dungeon maybe a month or two before the Red Dragon dungeon showed up. Or maybe it was there the whole time. The point is, anyone who went into this dungeon, not a single person has ever defeated a boss in this dungeon. So moving on from that, it's known as the Red Dragon Dungeon, the most famous dungeon of all times. Well, not of all times. It's just been 8 months. The most famous dungeon so far. Hardest one so far. No one's beaten it. No one's gotten out either alive or safe. There's a girl that went in there. She's a level 99. Her name is called Maria. But she's not really that useful. She's kind of a useless person. She's only acquired the level of 99 because she had other people fight in her place, and thus they gave her the powers after beating the dungeon for her. So transference of one's experience into another person's so that that person could gain level is a thing. So apparently someone has a skill that they could give their experience to another, contribute skills to another, so that person can become famous, or powerful. So because this person is a pop star, I believe she's a pop star. Those bodyguards that were protecting her, or those who serve her family, did dungeons with her, and they didn't want her to die or to get killed or anything. So their job is to make sure she stays alive. Though she's fascinated with dungeons, so every experience they got, they gave it to her because she wanted to become famous. So they just did the job because the parents paid her, them to do so, which makes perfect sense. So eventually she discovers that Sakura is powerful as hell. She probably did some snooping and realized that. She decided to join Sakura. Sakura says hell no, but she refused. She joined Sakura, and they entered the Red Dragon dungeon. And it turns out this is the main reason why a lot of people, one of the main reasons why a lot of people have never been beaten the Red Dragon dungeon before. And that's because it has a huge Lake of Wrath type poison thing like that of Elden Ring. Or Lake of Dead like that of, I think Remnant from the Ashes have something similar to that, where you have to walk past an entire lake full of nothing but acid type lava. Yeah, not fun. The point is, no one can get across except my boy who has the elevation skills, or should I say levitate skills. Now, he can't, I don't think he's mastered it completely yet. I think he leveled it up about 1 or 2 levels since he acquired it, but it's still very much a float levitation ability. So he got across the huge lake that no one could get across because no one has the ability to jump like Superman or to fly over it, and no one has his skills of levitation. So moving on from that, you get to see him reminiscing about being in a group of various different people from the past and before, those from the future. He gets to learn that, or should I say, we get to learn as readers that he was part of a group, a very famous and popular team, who are dungeon masters, and they were a very young age. They're able to gain popularity real quick, but it doesn't really matter because eventually, he says, I believe what he was saying is like, oh, that was from the past, a time period when I started questioning whether I should be in here or not. So he doesn't want to bring up sore subjects. So he kicks the monster's ass at the Red Dragon dungeons. Eventually he gets through. He's increased his level to about 417. With his 1,000 experience skill points, he's now gone beyond the level that he was before. So even though he's level 10,000, he's now excel 417 levels more. yeah, I don't know where he would be with regards to that. To be honest with you, going on to the next image, we see Flash Crimson, or the Crimson Lotus Squad. I call them Flash Crimson because that they look flashy and stuff. So the Crimson Lotus Squad is the people who, group of young people who are very popular. They're like, you know, the ballers of the whole dungeon crawling stuff or the master stuff. So they're doing great. They're famous. Blah blah blah. Their history between them and Sakura. Um, so Maria decides to say, okay, so let's join up with them. Um, he's not sure if he wants to join up with them. He has a little flashback of his parents and him leaving home 8 months ago. He says when he's finished the dungeon, uh, he's going to go back home and speak to his parents. They're going to have a nice little sit down chat, um, and that's what happens. So let's go back. I'm just going to go back just a little bit. So going back, we meet these people. I'm not going to go through their entire arc story. Each of them are individuals. There are different stories with regards to each of them. It flesh out a little towards each of these characters, but general story is that they all went into this dungeon, this unbeatable dungeon that no one has beaten before, to take on this nine-tailed type beast. No one was able to beat this nine-tailed type beast. They all get taken out, including the flashy Crimson Lotus squad coming in clutching stuff, looking like they actually exited the dungeon, kicking the monster's ass when it was actually Sakura that defeated the monster. He tells them that, listen, I hate fame. I don't want the spotlight on me. You guys could take the glory. And to be honest with you, that's how they really became famous. They were already known for their activities, but how they truly became famous was due to something that happened with Sakura. Now, their fame and fortune and all that stuff was already there, but I guess you could say Sakura's whole thing is that he excelled them towards even greater heights. So I can't really give credit towards Sakura for making these people famous because they were already famous before. Um, he just basically made them legendary. That's all he did. Otherwise, if it got word got out that Sakura was the one that defeated the dungeon where the Phoenix type nine-tailed beast was, then their image would have been tarnished in some ways. And he likes them a little enough to have them take the credit. So he goes back home after 8 months and says, "Welcome home." They have this little sit-down conversation. The conversation is about whether he should enter dungeons or not. He tells him that I'm going to keep entering dungeons because, one, I'm able to survive it. Otherwise, normal people would have been killed. I understand how dungeons work. This is my thing. This is what I'm into. And we could make some money off this on the side. Uh, Parents probably kind of like that. I don't know if they really do. They seem to be very um, like normal parents would. They don't want their kids to be involved with this, but it's it's not like they have a choice. The kid is going to run away again if you force him to do something. In fact, he's going to do far much worse than that if you force him. So they have no choice but to deal with his decisions. So the last scene I would say goes into this manga, and it's very interesting because I went all the way through. I went even further past this manga than I did with Gintama. In fact, with Gintama, um, I went up to about 5 chapters most. With this one, I went up to 10 chapters because I had to see what happens with regards to this guy's journey. So this arc was a long arc, and there was a good 10 chapters, I would say, of his arc. But this is just one part of the arc of defeating the hardest dungeon within all of Japan. His story is not over. This 10 chapter thing was very long, but it was just one part of an arc. So this probably even more than Gintama have purpose with regards to where it could possibly go. So that's the end of this, and moving on to the next. I would say with regards to Gintama and with regards to this, I would say Tima would be like an 8.9. An 8. I would say Tima would be either a 9 or an 8.9. Whereas this would be, I would say, an 8.5. Tima is very good, though the character is not that great. But this is right on its heels. So possibly either this manga or Tima might pick up as an anime down the road, or maybe none of them will. But I could see Tima or this picking up if they're able to create a story that pulls people in, that makes it relevant. Now, if you're playing this like, let's say, if I play this character, let's say a real person acts out the role of this character in the miniseries. Let's say, well, it doesn't work that way, but let's say they don't use a kid. Let's say they use an adult. And let's say the situation of Paris isn't Paris and it's someone's wife. Let's say a character like Jensen Ackles, for example, is the person that goes into this dungeon. Would it work? Probably not. Until he gets into the dungeons. That's when it will work. The reality of his life and what's going on in his life is kind of boring. But the reality of what's going on in the dungeons, that's not boring. That's same no matter how you see it. Because the reality of the dungeon isn't about the person itself. It's about stats. It's about how things work with regards to the stats. It's about save zones. It's about monster types. It's about how to build experience. It's about how to interact with people, how to do team ups. It's about those things. And it's about how those things work in relevance to the reality of the world outside. It's about how to split up reality outside and what's going on in the real world, in the fictitious world inside. How you could use what items you find inside this world towards things outside of the world. You can build a story with people being greedy and try to sell products and use people from individuals or things going on inside this world. That's how that would work. From a character point of view, I can see it working. But from an overall story point of view, I could see it working. That said, you would have to know how to do it correctly, otherwise it will go wrong, very wrong. That's another reason why I decided to put Tima above this one. But Tima is an easy layout. You know how to create a story like this. One, because Godzilla Minus One has proven that you can make a story of characters great rather than a story of just the monster itself. You just have to know how to do it. Same as this. You just have to know how to sell it. Yes, you could change the story, you could change the characters and everything, but you can't change certain things. You have to emphasize the power of those things to be more relevant than everything else and have everything else play backup dancers with regards to that thing itself. So those are the two mangas I have for December 2023 that are high up there. And the last one will just be one that's low down there, but possibly has a sense of gravitas that might or might not succeed in the end. That's the one I'm least concerned about. Now, moving on to the anime, we get to the anime section, and the anime section is only one. Like I said, this is only one anime for that of 2023. Kind of disappointing because there are no new animes for December 2023 due to embargo and other things. But there are many other factors. Streaming service don't allow certain animes, new animes, to show up until probably January of 2023. So until then, all December animes are considered new, not continuing, not OVA, not ONA, and not additional features with regards to something ongoing, such as a special or something. Those aren't new. I'm talking about new as brand new baby. So there aren't anything new. For both November and December, everything is ongoing or attachment to something. There are no new things. And the new things that are new aren't here yet because of many restrictions. So if you see anyone online say, well, this is new or something, or this new anime just came, that's because that person probably purchased that product from an online store of an actual physical item of that release item in that country that they got from an online store. I didn't go on to online to purchase any product from an online store so I could get that shipped to my house. Thus, I could speak about those December animes. No, I do things based on streaming services or when it gets to video in the United States. So I'm behind by always going to be behind by about a month. But even though I'm behind by a month, I do know this for a fact. Mangas don't apply the same logic as anime does. Because anime is a different type of beast when it comes to manga when it's marketing. So mangas, I don't have to worry about that stuff because mangas don't follow that criteria. So for this December 2023, Suzume no Tojimari is going to be um, what I am going to talk about. And this is Suzume. She pops up in the room. Um, I actually wrote this on my phone, so let me write this right down right now. All right, so the story's okay. I will read it directly from my phone. So this one is not going. I'm not going to wing this one. This one is going to be directly from my phone, which I wrote down. The story starts in a field. Girl walks through it looking for her mother. She goes into an abandoned building and then she goes into the field again. She then meets a stranger and soon wakes up. So this is the scene where she's waking up. But before that, she was in an abandoned field. And before that, she met some person that talked to her in this abandoned field as a child. And then she wakes up. Her dream was a mysterious one, but as she wakes up and she keeps going on, she basically has a boring but honest life. Um, she runs away. Well, she doesn't really run away. She goes to work or she's going to school in this situation, and she's bicycling on her way to school. Um, the hook of the, I wrote the hook of this anime is when Suzume bicycles her way into town, and she sees a guy who looks like a person from her dreams asking for directions to a ruin site because he's a ruin site excavator or an artifact searcher, something like that. Suzume goes to see her friend, but immediately U-turns and goes to see the stranger. Yes, the beginning portion of this anime is dumb. No one would go after a stranger. That's crazy. That's what I wrote down in my phone, which is true. She wakes up. Wait, where am I going? Yeah, this is true. She wakes up. She bicycles her way into town. She sees a stranger who asks for his ruin, where this ruin location is. She stops. She kind of thinks she's seen him before. She doesn't know if she's seen him before. She's about to go to school. After she has this conversation with him, meets her friend. Her friend then says, "Where are you going?" She U-turns back and she goes back to see where the guy is. The guy's gone, but he went in the direction of the ruin site, for which she told him about. And then there's some exposition with regards to what this ruin site is and how it came to be here. This old town that used to exist from way back in the past, that's been replaced by more modern Japan. So that's that. And why I say it was kind of crazy and dumb to chase after the stranger. She doesn't know who this person is, and just because you have a dream of someone that is kind of like the person that you saw in your dreams, doesn't mean that it's a good idea to follow that person. She kind of does the same stupid thing that Sakura did by running into the dungeon. I don't know what it is with anime or with manga that people make dumbass decisions. It's kind of the same when it comes to watching sci-fi movies and you see like a scientist touch a compound without wearing a mask. It's kind of like a stupid decision thing that people do when it comes to stories that I still to this day do not understand. And it's like every single one of them are kind of retarded in this sense. But like, why do they do these things? Are there individuals? Are there individuals who are above them? They're bosses, they're contractors, they're supervisors, the owner of the company, whoever they are. Is there some imbecile above them telling them to do this? That this is the direction that you should do. Follow this person. Go into this dungeon. Touch this toxic stuff with your hands without wearing a mask or gloves. I'm starting to think that there's some imbeciles in the entertainment industry making decisions for those who are below them that's completely moronic because they want the moronic to be part of those stories. Now, if you know this for a fact, and if you've seen this for a fact in your anime and stories, then you'll know what I'm talking about. And you can identify these people. Maybe MGM, maybe Paramount, maybe New Line Cinemas. Whoever these people who are in charge are dumbasses. And they will always be dumbasses, and you must recognize them as dumbasses. There are moneymakers who flash themselves off and say, well, we make this much money with regards to Halo. We made this much money with regards to Doom, with Bethesda and stuff. We make this much money, with regards to Call of Duty, we don't care about your shit game. Look at our money we're racking in. These are all imbeciles who are saying things from the point of view of market and finance and money making and showing the gravitas of their success through elevation of economics. These are people talking from economics for something related to art. Economics has nothing to do with art. Economics has something to do with economics and with making money. So when you're looking at something from an art form, you're telling a story from an art form, and any form of art, that's the direction that you're going. When it becomes something that's, falls into a decision that's more on economics point of view, like why the hell would this person make this decision? This doesn't seem logical. It seems like something that someone forced the story writer to be, and then it goes into a realm that takes you out of a game or out of a movie or out of any type of scenarios, and you realize that's probably what's happening. That's probably what's been happening for the past 10 years in films and in anime and in manga. Some dumbass retard who's in charge of something decide, hey man, I'm not dumbass, I'm not retarded, I'm flashing money, I got all this, I got this car, I got these bitches and everything. I got everything, my life is a success. You're the one that have to struggle as an artist, blah, 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 blah. The point is, whatever it is that they have, they will still be a dumbass because they're trying to make money off something they don't give a shit about. So it's up to you as an artist to clown them till the day they die. You must clown them. You have to clown them. You have to make fun of them because they damn sure make fun of you. They make fun of your creativity. They make fun of what you do for a living. And it's up to you to clown them and say, you know what, stay over there with the rest of your clownies. If money was what you consider God, then that's all you will ever be. Go back there with your family and your kids and everything. Clown him, clown his wife, clown his fucking kids. Because that's what they will always be till the day they die. They know nothing about creativity. They want to be the people who are being carried in a game. You ever heard of these people who are carried in games or in animes or in anything? That's who they are. They're the carriers. They must be treated as bitch made to the day they die. And yes, I know what I'm talking about. Even common people, even normal people, even some of the dumbest people and some of the smartest people, all can come to one sense of commonality with regards to this person is a bad guy. And they wouldn't be wrong if they say this person is a bad guy. And if a homeless person say that person's a bad guy, if a rich guy say that person's a bad guy, if a person who's a normal person come out and says, oh, that person is a bad guy, if everyone's pointing towards that person as being a bad guy, then that person's a bad guy. So then that person can't be wrong, or people can't be wrong, or what I'm saying can't be wrong if everyone's pointing towards that thing being a bad guy. There has to be some sort of unity that everyone's happy, some sort of synergy for a reason why everyone's identifying that thing as bad, because that thing is bad. And the best part is they don't care that it's bad. They like the fact. They like the madden of everything. Like, all right, well, bitch made, you like it till the day you die. Because guess what? There are going to be people around from here to thy kingdom come who are going to always treat you that way. You will never escape it. Or your family or family's family. You're carrying on a seed of people who are going to be treating you bitch made forever. So nothing will ever change. So I know that's what's going on in this anime. And that's what's going on in manga. And anytime something that influences art in some type of way that pisses me the hell off, that I know doesn't make sense, I know it's some douchebag who's jumped into this arena, who wants to make money like some prick trying to make money off a game because they're too lazy to get off their ass and do it themselves. So that's what's going on here. And in this scenario, that's what's influencing this anime. So based on the decision Suzume is making a dumbass thing and walking on her own, she gets to this door. She sees this door, and she's about to go through this door. But before she goes through this door, she sees that the door is just a singular thing inside this room. She goes to investigate it, and she doesn't know why. She just knows she is. She opens the door. She finds this, or before she opens the door, she finds this object lying on the floor. That looks like a type of a totem, representation of a totem or a Japanese style totem or some type of mini Muggle, or what do they call gnomes, mini gnomes? Uh, I don't think it's a gnome. It's more like a totem. She sees it. She picks it up. It turns into a cat, and she enters the door. She exits the door. She ends up closing the door after meeting this strange guy. The same strange guy she was asking admission about. And then after closing that door, they secured this location from this ruined door. So the whole point of this story is that there are doors opening up on this place for a reason that Suzume does not know. She doesn't know who the guy is. She doesn't know why that little totem thing turned into a statue, or why the statue turned into a little creature. All she knows is this is happening, and she's probably one of the only few people who could actually see these things happening. So she's in class. She looks out. She sees this giant structure, or this giant thing flashing out into the smoke thing, flashing out into the sky. No one else sees it. They're looking out their window. She's like, why the hell am I the only one seeing this? So she goes off to chase after it, and she realizes why she's chasing after it, or before she starts chasing after it, is that it's probably related towards that original door that she had to close with the help of Mr. Strange Guy. So moving on from that, let's see what else I wrote in regards to this. Okay, so it says here, I wrote down, moving on from this, Suzume talk to Soda, mysterious man, blah, 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 close the door. The cat pops up, the cat's disappeared. She sees another thing, finds, okay, blah, blah, blah. Moving on past the 20-minute marker, the gate starts to open again, and a black mist that looks like a worm ascends from the air. Suzume and Sota both stop the gate from opening again. Suzume's aunt is losing her cool, trying to keep her adopted daughter, or in this case, not really adopted daughter, but guardian, safe while working. Suzume's mom has died years ago, blah, blah. Suzume then meets Chika. Okay, all right, Chiaki. Why did I put Chika? Okay, so this is Suzume's guardian. And she's one of the main characters of the story, one of the main secondary characters of the story. And she's very important. And to me, she's the most relevant person in this entire anime. She's more relevant than Suzume, in my opinion. In fact, the story should have been about her instead of about Suzume, if I was to be honest. So her role in this, in the voice acting for this character, did a fantastic job. So moving on from that, we get to the chair section. Like I said before, Suzume traced after this chair, and this chair happens to be Sota, who's transformed into this chair by the cat, or should I say by the totem that turns into a cat. So a lot of bizarre stuff is happening in this anime that makes no sense, and it's not clarified with the first 25% marker of the anime. So the chair starts chasing after the cat. Suzume starts chasing after the chair. She eventually gets to this boat, where she jumps onto the boat chasing after the chair, after the chair chasing after the cat. She starts speaking to the chair, which is kind of ridiculous, kind of thing. Makes it seem like she's mental. And this is the first time I would say I agree with most of the fans with regards to why I can't consider this really to be in the levels of where I would say Miyazaki would be with regards to his stories. Is because one, the story doesn't it deviates too much one way and then to the next, and then it gets back to being on center, then it deviates again, then it gets back to being on center, then it deviates again. It's very choppy in that way throughout the entire journey.
and I felt it the moment I got to the point where I met where Sota got turned into a chair. One is because maybe it's because Sota being turned into a chair and he's a talking chair, then isn't as appealing as them using a different type of object to represent bizarrety of this world. Um, Relevance to the chair is very important, but for reasons why they would want to use the chair, it doesn't really seem to add the level of gravitas that would have worked if they had to use a different object. The chair thing doesn't work for me at all, and it doesn't work for a lot of people either, based on what I've saw with regards to comments with regards to this anime. I would say people claim this director is the next Miyazaki, but I don't see it at all. I see the world design and the interaction with characters and the story to be very beyond Miyazaki. With regards to the main character itself, is not. Um, I think that part is lacking. The main protagonist of this story is very lacking with regards to protagonist in Miyazaki's story, where you get a sense of who the character is with regards to their interaction with other people. It feels more alive that way, whereas in this one, it doesn't feel that way. I would say the one good thing about this, or two good things about this anime, the same I said with regards to Tima and with regards to uh, Saikyou, now Saikyou no Mugen is wait Saikyou de Saikyou no Mugen. I have to say correctly. Um, is the perspectives, and the perspectives is on point here even more than it is on point with Tima. I think, in fact, the perspective work in this is hands down the best perspective work I've seen in anime to this day. Everything is done in just perfect, fine detail, crisp, clean, accurate, very focused, central, very done very well. The rails on this building done very well. Look almost realistic if you were to take a picture of it. The distant ship looks very reminiscent of a real ship. Though it's drawn, you could tell it's drawn, the details on it, on each little part, is very well done. The building design, the composition of the building, the lines in the building, everything that represents where the windows are, where things are, is done very well. The back section not so much, but then most back sections of buildings aren't exactly perfect anyway. The wheels on the trucks, the wheels on the cars, the angles of everything, where they're going, where the horizon line meets, where the angle starts, right here, right here. The colors that are used, the water, the color. Well, the water is kind of simple. That part is simple, but the road, the colors used on the road, and even more so, the most important part, more than anything else, is the angles and the distance of the angles based on foreshortening and based on shadows. Where this is angled based on the lighting from the sun. Where this is angled based on the lighting from the sun. Where this, you see the distance and curve with regards to the shadow from the pole right here, and then the shadow from the pole right here. Why this one goes this way a little, why this one goes this way a little, because the position of this pole and the position of this pole are further apart. Thus the shadows would form in this way more based on the lighting from the sun coming downwards, where in this. So this artwork is done very well. Moving on from there, we get to meet Chica, as or I called it in this typed on my phone, Chica. It's probably Chiaki. It says here she's a friend that meets along the way of her journey. Suzume leaves Chica's place and continues to look for the mysterious talking cat. She goes to Chobe, and this is later on. So she's going to Chobe. For right now, she meets this girl, which I call Chica, which is probably Chiaki. She drops oranges or something oranges like maybe it's potatoes on the field after she was doing her job duty. What the hell is this? That's weird. Oh, she closed the door. I thought this was from a different anime. I was just about to say this is a different shot from an anime. No, this is the door that she was reminiscing about. She told Chico about closing a door, and there's a shot of her going back in her mind about her closing the door, and then Chico says, "Well, wow, that's a bizarre story. So you're here from very far away. What you doing all the way out here?" See, I traveled all the way here because I'm on this mission. Um, Chica doesn't believe her. I keep saying Chica, it's probably Chiaki, but I'm going to call her Chica from now on. Um, she doesn't believe her and says, "Well, that's an interesting story, but I'm not sure if I could entirely believe you, but I understand the whole running away thing. When I was much younger, I did the same thing. I had my own little adventure." So she basically helped Chica along the way on this path. And another thing that's good about the story is that as uh, as Suzume is traveling through the story, she meets various different individuals along the story. And these are very different paths within the breaking of the story, the general overall story from beginning to end. You have to find a place to fit these people within that story. Where's the best place to put Chiga? Where's the best place to put Sota? Where's the best place to put her guardian? Where's the best place to put friends along the way or strangers along the way? You have to find the right place to put these people along the way. Another good thing about this anime is that it has a good pacing with regards to placement of characters. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to see this anime. It's not just about the story, but it's about the pacing of the overall story with regards to characters that are placed throughout the story along her journey. So this is very much a pilgrimage for her from where she first started off to where she's ending off, and those who she meet along the way off that pilgrimage. They're kind of like guardian angels or guiding lights towards her, like light points when you're walking down a dark street, or light points towards or checkpoints in the game, so to speak. So this is kind of like one of those checkpoints. And so she talks to her about this, spends the night at her place. They have a good time, blah, blah, blah. Moving on from that, she eventually said, "Well, I have to keep on the way, but I'm glad that we meet each other." They gave each other a big hug. She goes back into her house or doing her job and everything or whatever she is, and says goodbye to her. It was fun. They helped each other out. And, it was nice meeting this person. She later goes to Chobe. She says she was traveling to Chobe. She went at the bus stop. She's at the bus stop right now. And during that time at this bus stop, it was a rainy night, and she saw this woman with her kids saw this girl sitting at night at a bus stop. Well, not at night, sitting in the morning, because I believe it's morning time, but it's raining season, makes everything dark. She's sitting at a bus stop by herself on a rainstorm. Once again, doesn't make sense, but this is an anime. So the woman and her kids pick Suzume up, and the woman realized, due to the recent quakes, she needs a babysitter because her original babysitter pieced out, and now she has two kids who are she has to manage. This is one of the best scenes in the show, to my opinion, because it shows that Suzume is exploring an even greater aspect of herself as well as a greater aspect of the world around her. It's not simply about meeting people, it's about understanding uh, who she is as a person with regards to meeting other people. She understands that this is a working mom. She understands that these are bratty little kids. She understands that she has to take care of these kids. You could basically say this is her first job as a babysitter. Her first actual real job is to babysit. And during her first real job, she gets to meet this person, gets to manage them and take care of them. And this woman leaves her kids in Suzume's care because she knows she has this feeling, or strange feeling, that Suzume is this type of person. Normally, no one in their right mind would do this, but this is an anime, one, and two, well, Japanese culture is different from American culture. Not say that a Japanese person will let a stranger take care of their kids, but this is the country. These are villages. Most of these people know each other, and even if they're not from the same country or not from the same village or from the same town, they all grew up with the same type of mentality in regards to who they are. And I guess you could say they kind of could tell the difference between someone who's uh, violent in nature to someone who's just, rebelling and being punkish. So I think this woman kind of sensed that Suzume was that type of person from the beginning. Otherwise, she would have never left her alone with her kids. Moving on from there, we get to see Suzume's guardian spazzing out again over Suzume not calling her after being away from home for more than a day. Um, and then she takes the part-time job of the babysitter, and she puts the kids to sleep. And then thereafter, Suzume then goes outside and goes to see where the mother is, and then finds out that the mother's working at a bar, which is very much close to where her house is, and she starts working the bar. So she's working inside a bar while her guardian is actually desperately checking up on her to see where she is. Um, I think it says, what is this, right? A place where no living body should go. The lure of the enemy is the gate and the world. So to disclose, okay, so I go deeper into the gate and deeper into Sota and deeper into the cat and everything and what all that is relevant. So she leaves the place where she was working, goes to chase after the cat to close another gate, and after that is closed, she just goes back to where the restaurant was. They have the restaurant closes, and they have a nice little chat towards the girl that has the two kids and the woman that was also working. One is the waitress that were working. They all sat down after the place is closed, have their meal, about to say their goodbyes. Suzume pieces out, says goodbyes to them, and leaves to go to look for Sota in Sota's old hometown in order to find out what the hell's going on. So eventually she gets to this location. She finds this apartment building and where he lives and everything, based on what he told them, because she takes the chairs with him, and Sota is a chair, so he obviously knows where he lives. She goes there. She finds the location. She goes inside of the location. She opens the door. She checks up his place, and then thereafter she's met by this guy called Takami. No, she's met by some other guy along the way. I forgot his Daijin. No. Daijin is, I'm getting this all wrong. Takami is the mom looking for Suzume, or the guardian looking for Suzume. So she goes into this location. She finds his place where he stays at. I forgot the name of this guy. I'm not going to try to remember it. He's a friend of Sota's, and he goes off together with this guy. But eventually, um, another one of these gate things appeared over Tokyo, and he has to investigate into the development. She has to investigate into the development of this phenomenon again. Another gate needs to be closed. Moving on forward, both Suzume and Sota close this gate. This time, it's required that Sota gets the key in order to close this gate. But in order for that to happen, a sacrifice needs to be made. So Sota has to take the responsibility of closing this gate by himself. So by doing so, he becomes the key, and thus the gate closes. But it doesn't close entirely right away, because this is a very powerful one. This is the one that covers all of Tokyo. So he does manage to close his gate, but in order to do so, he had to sacrifice his life in order to do so. So spoiler alert, yeah, this guy is very much, I wouldn't say he's dead, but he's somewhat dead. And then we get a flashback regards to her mind and what's going on in her dreams. And it turns out that the chair is very relevant to she was in the past. It was something that her mother built for her when she was very young. This built chair has some relevance there attached to her mother. And that's why the whole chair thing is the spiel throughout the story, because it was something done by her mother, and her mother's dead. And that's why it's the most focused thing within this anime, other than Suzume herself. So Suzume goes up this like a stairwell towards meaning where this old hospital was, where this man was, and I would say this is also a nice little shot right here, very good. Um, if you look off into the distance where Suzume is, it shows the body of this character coming up the stairs. It very much looks like a real world photo of a person walking up a stairs. The legs not so much, but if you look at the hair and the covering of the hair and the face itself, that's very realistic looking. If you were to take a shot of someone at a great distance and you see a blur, you will only see their hovering of their their hair. You won't see the details on their face and everything. So I guess it's due to the lighting and due to the shadows. It looks very realistic, like a real person walking up the stairs. So that's done very well. Even though you could see it's still sketchy. Um, then you see this gentleman here who's I believe it's the grandfather of Sota. And it's discovered that Sota is part of an organization whose sole job was to make sure doors close. I think they're called closers. They're like shamans or something, a special type of shamans, and their duty is to make sure those doors stay closed. At least that's in the description of what they are. So that said, moving on from that, she get into a conversation with this old man. The old man says, "Well, if you go to find Sota, you will be letting the darkness from that closed gate back into reality. So you'll be undoing everything he sacrificed himself for." She says she doesn't care, but she'll figure out a way to close it and save Sota at the same time. She tries to tell her it doesn't work that way, so she goes off. She ignores them. And still, she's going to try to save Sota. I'm pretty sure it's going to go bad, no matter how you see it. So eventually, Takami meets her, her guardian Takami, and she realizes after finally catching up to her, she's going to take her home. But then she realizes Takami is with the guy that's Sota's friend. I forgot his name though. Tomoya? I think his name is Tomoya. Each person on the way to this journey have value to them. Akame Suzume Tomoya. Yeah, I think so. I think that's his name. If I remember correctly what I wrote down. His name is Tomoya. He smokes a lot. Um, he says Sota owes him money. That's why he's looking for Sota. But that's not the truth. The truth is he is Sota's friend. Um, he's a professor training to be a college professor or training to be a teacher, and he's the one that actually owes Sota money. But Sota forgot about it, and so he always used that kind of excuse in order to get money out of Sota, or maybe he was just saying it for Suzume's benefit, in order to not tell Suzume what's going on, because he doesn't know who Suzume is when she entered the apartment. So he automatically assumed that she was this strange person. So he made up this lie. At least that's what I'm going with. So on this journey towards the last of the doors, you have an interesting location, or should I say, we have an interesting moment, and then going to interesting locations. And the location of this very interesting moment is the road itself, the trip itself. There's a long expressway scene, and I believe it's a good 5 to 7 minutes expressway scene, whereas there's a long conversation throughout this anime that's done very, very, very well. And this is the point where I say this is why Tamaki is the main character in some ways of the story, even though she's not the main character. I value her more as the main character, or should I say she should have been the main character and not Suzume, and the story should have been her, and Closing Gates should have been about her, but it wasn't, because she's more of an interesting character than Suzume herself. What she wanted in her life before she became who she became, what she wanted as a venture, why she was taking up the responsibility of taking care of Suzume, um, what's her overall goal, what's her behavior, how she responds to people smoking, how she responds to music, how she sees life, how she sees interactivity with others, how she doesn't like to go out a lot with people she doesn't know, how she's friendly with certain type of people, how she's not friendly with other type of people. Um, she's basically a complication sandwich. That's what she is. Everything about her life is complicated. So there's more to unpack within just this character of Tamaki than there is ever going to be with the character of Suzume. Moving on from that, in some ways you could say the same applies to Tomoya. I believe Tomoya has more character development than Suzume herself. So these two characters, it's so bizarre when I watch this anime. Um, it's so bizarre when I watch this anime. It's so bizarre that these two characters who pop up, I would say in the halfway point. Like Tomoya pops up in the halfway point, but Tamaki was at the very beginning, where her story doesn't really get fleshed out until the halfway point or nearing the halfway point. It's so weird because I believe it was intentional, even though it's weird, that once someone sits inside of a movie theater for more than 45 minutes, you would then thereafter need someone to help to tell the rest of the story moving on towards the end if the main character cannot do it. And I believe that was the intention of having someone like Tamaki and Tomoya. You say, well, if people are bored with our main character, we need something to transition them from the middle section of the story towards the end that gives some type of life and meaning towards our main character. That's great, but at the same time, if they're more potent than that of the main character, they take away from the more substance of the main character, and thus people are more focused on those main characters rather than on the general protagonist of the story, which is something that they should not have done. That's why, at the same time, this is why I'm saying it's somewhat reminiscent of that of what Miyazaki does in his story, or what Araki does in his story, with regards to the JoJo's. Um, you want to know the mystery of what's going on in JoJo Bizarre Adventure, though you have many characters, but there's never one simple focus character, even though there's a main character. But the main character doesn't exactly become that interesting along the way until he gets his feet wet and you get to see him shined. And it's at the halfway point of the story that Suzume really becomes kind of a character, and it's due to the fact that these additional secondary characters have gave her this more of a purpose, or gave her more fleshing out. By them being fleshed out, they actually gave her more additional points towards her characters, because now they have more they're offering towards her to flesh her out more, where she was more singular. So their relevance is more important in many ways than Suzume is. More so than Tamaki, who lashes out at Suzume. Like I said, Tamaki is kind of like the MVP of this film, because by her lashing out, you get to see what she's always felt all the time. Her upset nature, her love and her care towards Suzume, her wild side, her unwilling to accept the wild side and to be more a responsible adult. Um, all this is present within Tamaki, and then some strange thing happened. Another cat shows up. A giant black cat shows up alongside a white cat. And I think the whole point of this anime is to emphasize that the black cat is simply there to keep the white cat from getting out of control and doing whatever it wants. Like the little white cat is like basically the mischievous one that's causing problems, and the black cat is basically like the cat there to manage um, it getting out of control. The black cat is generally seen as the mother cat to manage that which is getting out of hand. Um, these two cats are representative of gods. So in this anime, there are gods that exist, but they take on the form of small cats. So moving on from that, you get to see the next scene, and the roof of the car that didn't close down eventually finally closes down. So whatever was going on with the car has now fully been confirmed to it does work. It just needs a bit of a jolt. Of course, a crash needed for it to happen to get to that point, but it did get to that point. So moving on from that, we get to see a next scene, and that next scene shows Tamaki taking Suzume towards the ruined gate area with the two gods, and then I believe this is the 85% marker of the story, and this is when the reveal of the main character, or should I say the flushing out of the main character comes to an end, and where it's just a closing up of the main character, uh, and then where the fleshing out of other characters is just also come to an end, and it's just the development of the main character moving on forward, and it's just the closing of the story is moving on forward. So we're already past the 75% marker, and it's simply about how you close out the story is what's important now. So that said, once again, we get to like the last section of the story where um, we first see here they're on a bike because the car doesn't work anymore, so they're biking towards that last section, and then an even longer conversation between Suzume and Tamaki happens again. So there are multiple locations where Suzume and Tamaki happen throughout the story. There are very small ones throughout the beginning, and there are more long ones throughout the nearing the middle. Then there's a long one towards the middle in the car, and then there's another long one on the bike. So the whole point of Tamaki, this guardian, is simply kind of like she's kind of like a guardian angel. So it's kind of like Suzume's consciousness speaking to her outside of her body. So that's how I felt Tamaki was. Tamaki was this mature, angelic consciousness that was constantly around Suzume in order to guide her hand. Even though she wasn't technically, she felt like that in this moment, this bike ride. And especially in the shadow moment when they're writing down, explaining, Tamaki explaining her life and her youth to Suzume. That's when it felt like this Tamaki was more than just a character written within the story, that she was in the story for a specific meaning, and showing this bike scene is an explanation of that meaning. It was explained before, but it felt more real in that moment than anywhere else throughout the story, whether it's the beginning, middle, or going towards the end. Or should I say the end itself, not going towards the end, because this moment is going towards the end. So moving on from that, we get to see Suzume in this place called the Dark World, or the Void World, or the Corporeal World, where she enters through the door, the place of death, where Sota is. She goes to rescue Sota from this the Keystone area, where she's meant to be a key to stay there forever in order to keep the darkness from getting out into the real world and destroying Tokyo. For some miraculous way, she's able to do it, and she's able to do it by convincing the cat, which was the key, original key, to go back to becoming the key. Why that happens? Another reason why I would say this anime doesn't really stack up with regards to uh, where it would where you would say certain animes have stacked up in the past, um, or I don't know, like say the story of Cowboy Bebop, where Cowboy Bebop series began, middle, and then it ended, where it doesn't stack up with regards to something like that, is it doesn't really make sense that the Daijin, the cat, will all of a sudden become the key again simply because it finally realizes Suzume's desire to bring Soda back to life is more important than anything else. Um, or was that the intention of the cat at the beginning? There was nothing to state this intention from the very beginning to the middle or going towards the end. And if it was left up to the audience to decide what it was, it's a poor execution of that statement because there was nothing to hint towards it whatsoever at all. There was no hint in there whatsoever at all. You could say the cat was guiding you throughout certain individuals to meet certain individuals to go to certain places where she meets certain individuals so she could interact with those individuals, and thus the journey is for her to discover those things on her own. But that's just jumping the shark a little. That's just assuming things a little. There's no direct connection to say that is what it is. You have to have something within an anime to say, I did this for this reason, and that's why I did it. Then you can make a connection. If you're just doing things based on assumption and theories, then it's simply going to be based on assumption and theories, and that's where the whole cat thing got me out of the film. And that's why I say, well, this isn't really to the level of where I would say something like Cowboy Bebop or uh, was it Howl's Moving Castle or uh, JoJo Bizarre Adventures, um, Stardust Crusaders, even something as wild as that. I would say this really isn't at that level, even though the interactions and the human element is greater than that of JoJo. I would say it's not at that level because it doesn't understand certain things. The whole chair thing doesn't make sense. The whole cat thing doesn't make sense. The whole point of Suzume not having been fleshed out more than secondary characters doesn't make sense. There's about 5 to 6 things in this anime that doesn't make sense. And I feel like they dropped the ball on those things. But at least towards the end, they closed out properly. Suzume gets to discover that the person that gave her the chair, was not her mom. The person that gave her the chair was herself because she came through one of those portal doors into the past and gave her a chair from the past. Um, so that's how Suzume got the chair. That's how Suzume got to be attached to the chair, even though her mom built her that chair from the past, and she completely forgot about it. Um, she was the one that gave her that chair from the past. So it's not that it was her mother that gave her that chair from the past. She gave her that chair from the past. So it's very much I think someone said it was very much a Harry Potter and um, Prisoner of Azkaban thing where Harry Potter came from the future to help himself in the past, something like that. So something like that, but it's not technically something like that, but it's something like that. But moving on from there, the story then ends. The gate is now closed. Suzume then goes home with Tamaki. You see the different events that are happening along the way, the different people that met along the way. So they're going in reverse order back home. So the way they came is the way they're going back home, and the different ways they got home, or should I say, the different ways they got to where they're going. They took those same ways getting back home. So if Suzume started with a bike at the beginning, start running and then bike and then got on the bus and then got on a boat. No, she ran, she took a bike, and she got on a boat, and she waited for a bus, but she got a car with someone, and then she got on a plane. Um, or how did it go? No, she took a bike after she ran. She got on a boat, and then she got to this location. And then she met Chica, and then she got on a plane to get to where Sota's apartment was in Tokyo or something like that. And then she got in a car um, with a woman and her kids, and then she got in another car with a dude, Tomoya, along with Tamaki, to get to this location. And then they're doing the same thing, but in reverse order. So Tomoya took them back in the car, and they got back on the plane to get away from Tokyo back to their location for where they live. Then they're gonna get back on the bus or back on the boat to get over to the island that they live on or to the location they live on by the boat, and then they're gonna take either a bus or walk the rest of the way to their house. So it's gonna be the same thing. So towards the end, we get to see a scene that started from the beginning of the story, where she met Sota, and the scene where she met Sota at the very beginning of the story, the first 5% of, or the first 5 minutes of the story, is the same as the last 5 minutes of the story, or should I say the last 2 minutes of the story. Um, they're on the same road and they're walking in the same direction, um, the same way it happened before. He was walking up to find ruin. She was going down to school. Same way, same thing. Um, could that be foreshadowing of a continuing series or possible future of more stories down the way in the same way? Could be. Or it could be just a nice way to close out a story. So that was Suzume no Tojimari. It's a great story. In percentage wise, I would say, in comparison to Tima, in comparison to Mugen, um, uh, Saikyou no Mugen, Saikyou de Saisoku no Mugen, I would say it will fall into the. I would give it at least 2 more points other than that which I gave Tima. Because Tima I have it as a 9. I really like that manga. I would say Suzume would be 9.2. Not because of Suzume, but because of the story around, because of the world, because of the world design, because of what's going on in the world. It's just, its production value is just higher. Um, and plus, I don't know the entire context of what Tima is going to get to, where it's going to get to. Here is a one-shot story. It's a film, and it will eventually come to an end. And that's what happened. It came to an end. There, it's an anime series. It hasn't come to an end yet. It hasn't even gotten to a halfway point yet. So since it hasn't even gotten to the halfway point yet, I cannot predict what's going to happen with that. So I have to put Suzume 2 points over that as a 9.2. I don't still think it's beyond the realm of, or in the realm of where things like, uh, Miyazaki's work is, or where Araki's work is, or where Toshiro's work is, or even stuff from way back in the days, such as Demon City Shinjuku, or what is it, or Ghost in the Shell. I still don't think it's at that level yet, but it would have to have a series or have to have following films in order to play out for it to be at that level yet. That's why I have it at the low 9s. Suzume has low 9s. I can't see it being a mid 9s territory or high 9s territory. It's very low in the market. In fact, if I was to really say my honest opinion about it, I would say in comparison to that of Tima, I would still have it under Tima. So realistically, it would be like an 8.5 film, 8.5, 8.6, 8.7 film. So if I wanted to be truly honest, this is an 8.5. If I wanted to be truly honest about Saikyou de Saisoku no Mugen, I would say that it's an 8.4. So, and if I wanted to be truly honest about Tima, from a personal point of view, not from an audience point of view, I would say Tima is a 9. So there's more going on in Tima, I believe, that will be revealed later down the road. It has purpose. That's why I put Tima a little high. But for the general audience point of view, if their general audience was to see or read or hear about any of these things, and all three of them together, if you were to put them in front of someone, they would probably pick Suzume above all these others, such as the artwork, such as everything, such as characters. So that, from the audience point of view, Suzume is still above all those two mangas I said before. Last but not least, I'm getting into the one I'm just saying right now. I'm getting it out the way right now, and that's Maryoku Man 999. That's the one I was talking about that I wasn't sure I was going to add with regards to my manga list. And I'm only putting this one here simply because I have no choice but to admit that there's factors within this anime that has a great purpose and possibly has a future down the road, depending on how they write the story. Because the story in the story is very amateurish and very childish. And the artwork is not some of the greatest either with regards to how it's drawn, but the perspective shots and how things are placed and the general story. Another good manga with regards to story over character is Maryoku 999 Man, which is very interesting. So getting deep into this one real quick, Maryoku 9991 is about this gentleman. And this gentleman is called Kusano. I believe his name is, wait, I write it down. Come on, where are you? Kusanagi Minato? No. No. It's, what's his first name? His first name is, Mochizuki. No, that's the name. The artist of this Maryoku 999, her name is Yumu Mochizuki. For all I know, it could be a boy or a girl, to be honest with you. That's the name of the artist for this manga. This guy name is Kasano's. His first name is unknown, but because he's not the first person, he's someone within someone else's body. He wakes up in a hospital after transfers of oneself into his relative's body. This guy's lived for 70 years. Apparently, he died during a great disaster that happened back in the past with a bunch of monsters coming into this world. And he was able to stop this event, world cataclysmic event called the Calamity. But he died during the process of this world cataclysmic event known as the Calamity. So it's been 70 years. He finds himself in the hospital. He eventually realizes people don't know that he's been transferred from his dead self, dead spirit, into the body of his grandson. I'm assuming this is his grandson. This is 70 years down the road. So it would be his grandson if he's in teenage form. Or maybe this is his great-grandson. If we're thinking about things from the point of view of a full 70 years from his death, if he had a son, his son would be, let's say his son was a teenager, then by 20 or 30 years down the road, that son would have a kid. 20 or 30 years down the road, that kid would be an adult around his age right now. So, and then an additional 10 years attached to that. That person, grandson would then have a kid, which would be 10 years old. So either he's the grandson of this great magician, or this is a great grandson of this great magician, Minato Kusanagi. And then I was reincarnated into Minato Kusanagi. So the grandson is called Minato Kusanagi. I think his name is called Ichikami. See, it's hard to remember all these anime characters' name because it's ridiculous, and I'm not going to try to. His name is not that difficult to remember, but there's so many better names to anime protagonists than his. So his name is Ichikami Minato, and Minato Ichikami has transferred into the body of his younger great-grandson or grandson's body in order to, for reasons we don't know because it's not explained to us why this happened. Could have been some devious plan, could have been someone, could have been something, could have been the calamity itself. Who knows? Or maybe it could have been someone who decided to do some nefarious stuff in order to bring the family back into power or ruin the family, but there's safeguards in order for that not to happen. We don't know. It's not explained to us. It's just he's seeing the events based on pictures he found within Minato's house of him dying. He's learned that Minato's Ichikami Minato dying and being in the body of his great-grandson or grandson. means that he gets to discover that his grandson was is the only child after his parents died, and he was left his grandson was left with his parents' inheritance, and so he's been living off his parents' inheritance in order for him to survive because he's a kid all by himself. It sounds very much cliche, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't want to include it in this list. It's the old same old stuff. The only reason I'm including this is because I like the idea of where the story was going and the possibility of the main character becoming someone more than what he is. So he's basically a level 99,99999 final master type character. And the whole point of the story is to dumb him down from being the greatest of all time to being more relatable towards everyone around him and not to see himself as this cocky son of a bitch. So moving on from that, we get to go to Magic High School, or in this case, the Magic Academy, and the perspective in this anime is also one of the ones that pulled me into it. I like the ideas how they set up the design of this. It's not the most complicated one. It's not like you can see behind the buildings or see the 3D models behind the buildings or see the light and shadows. Light and shadows are all shown from the frontal point of view, from based on where the lighting is. So this is another good perspective design within this manga. Once again, the focus is not on the character and character development and character modeling, such as in not even. It seems that both in Suzume, both in Gaea, um, both in also in Mugen, and also in this one as well. People tend to focus more on the background because they don't know how to focus more on character development and character art styles. So I guess you could say it's a telling of the type of story that they're giving. If someone is more focused on what's going on around them in perspective wise, it's not really about character central wise. Otherwise, they would be focusing on how the character looks, how the character is dressed, how the character is designed, moving on, so on and so forth. So down the road, he gets to see that in this academy of magicians, that everyone's terrible at magic, and he's like the only person that's very proficient at it, to the point that he's pissed off. Moving on forward from that, get to meet a bunch of ridiculous characters as well, who he kind of thinks are a bunch of lamos because their style of magic is so low level that it's laughable to that of a kid. So there's this one who's a bully, and then there's the conceited girl who's also in some ways a bully herself, but not really. She's just full of herself. Comes from a very noble family, so on and so forth. Thinks that because she comes from a noble family and she spent a lot of time in training um, with magic, is that she's very proficient at it. Little does she know that her form of training in magic is very limited to those who actually train consecutively, continuously, over and over and over and over again in that specific thing and doing nothing. It's like eating breakfast, uh, eating a lunch, and eating dinner, but you're not moving out of one spot. You're still in one location training while you're doing those things. So her lack of understanding these things is very laughable to him, as well as everyone in the school who are supposed to be trained, even some of the teachers as well. So moving on from that, we get to see him in the classroom, having to have to listen to a stupid lecture, which he can't stand, and then to realize that he's being honored as one of the greatest wizards or magicians of all time. He's so embarrassed at the whole thing that the future consider him to be this saint-like character, that they have statues of him, they have books of him. Um, it's ridiculous to the point that he gets up and decides to leave. The guy who's the big mouth guy, bully guy, starts to clown on him, clown on the fact that his parents are dead and he's an orphan and stuff. That pisses him off. It's about, he says something back to him. I don't remember what he says, but it got him to the level that it pissed him off. He threw a fireball at him. It does nothing, and then he basically shows a bit of his own power, um, personal power with regards to the kid, showing him that what he considers magic is not much of anything, and how I would say this is one of the more interesting factors or reason why I decided to be into this manga. Not really into this manga, but I decided to choose this manga because I want to see where this manga is going. That's all. It's not like Tima. It's not like Saikyou or the Saisoku no Mugen. It's not like Suzume. It's um, it's something that's lackluster, but it has a sense of purpose to it, and that's one of the things that held me towards it. And I want to see what's going to go down this road. Is it going to turn into something that's completely shit? I gotta know. If it's going to be something that's good, I gotta know. How I know this is something that's interesting. How he set up certain things throughout the story, where he showed up in the story, in the hospital. Why was he looking in the mirror in the hospital? When they were showing a perspective shot from above, why they showed it? How did he get transferred into the body? Why is he going to school? How does his power have different colors to it? Blue, red, purple, all these things. Why are these things happening? Moving on from there, we get to see to another purpose, and we're moving forward. And that's where I'm going to. I think I'm going to stop it right here at a certain point because I'm hearing a lot of noise in the background. But I will say before I piece it out, um, another form of why I wasn't sure I was going to include this within the list is because the monster design in here is very lackluster. And I believe it was lackluster because it was intended to be lackluster. The person who created the monster in this manga wanted the monsters to look that way, wanted the monsters to look cheap and cheesy, like it was made by a 2-year-old, something like that. Or at least by someone who knows how to do monsters, but wanted to look in a certain way that was very rough and very indirect and didn't make much sense with regards to how it was designed. So once he destroyed this monster, the monster still kept his form, of his appearance, of his bizarre, amateurish looking monster appearance, but in the real world. So where you have nice, clean, crisp images of people and nice, clean and crisp images of characters like this and like that of the characters, each of them looking the way they do. You then have monsters that look very blotchy and very bloated and very out of focus and doesn't seem like it's part of the same anime as the one that you're, or manga in the sense, as the one that you're reading. That there feels like there are very two things happening at the same time, and that because that was intended here. And so I have to go with what's going on because I knew it was there's an intention in this manga to go in a direction that I don't know about yet. Just like there's an intention for it to leave off information that it doesn't want to tell you. Is this important or not? Halfway important, and other half not important. One, you have to know what happened to him, why he's back in this body of this person. Really, do I really have to know? I don't really have to know. I don't give a shit. But in some ways, I do want to know why he came back in the body, even though I don't care. And if I don't care, I'd be like, well, okay, I'm about to peace out. Then why does the monsters look the way the monsters do? It's like, oh no, someone's just terrible at drawing. That's why they can't draw monsters. It's like, so the person that got hired to do the art for the monsters is terrible at drawing monsters, but they're great at drawing characters and the world and buildings. No, there's a direct intention for those things to look the way they're happening, as well as the direct intentions for the reason why the future is so cookie cutter Mickey Mouse, that everyone has a level of magic power that's so comfortable that peace has engulfed this world to be kind of, pathetic. This is very much a Demolition Man world where the Demolition Man wakes up and discovers that how the world has turned into a cookie cutter nightmare. So that's what's going on. And that was the first thing that came to my mind after I saw this. It's like, oh, this is Demolition Man. This is 100% Demolition Man. He wakes up, he's OP, and everybody else in the world are little sissies. And their powers are sissies. But they all think they're the shit. So he has to go through this, realizing that these people aren't the Demolition Man, and he's the Demolition Man. But eventually down the road, he realized that he's got to face an opponent that's Demolition Man like him. An opponent is far more terrible than any opponent here. Maybe this opponent is from this time period. Maybe this opponent is also from his time period and comes over to this time period, and now they have to do it the Demolition Man way. Maybe it won't go the Demolition Man way. Maybe it'll go in a different route. And that's the only reason why I stuck with this one. And I'm still sticking with this one. I got to see how this turns out in the end. Because if it goes in the Demolition Man route, then that means this is worthy of making into an anime series or film. But if it doesn't go in that Demolition Man route, then it has to be something that excels what Demolition Man was trying to do, because there's many things in Demolition Man that's completely stupid and made no sense. And it's kind of ridiculous if you think about it at the same time. But there's certain things in Demolition Man that's awesome, like that last fight scene between Snipes and Stallone. If there's something like that that happens throughout, oh, you wake him up, or a scene where the bad guy wakes up, or let's say the bad guy doesn't have to wake up, the bad guy is here. The bad guy goes to an ATM machine. The ATM machine says, we don't have any guns or anything like that. It's like, this is the future. It's like bullshit, you know? Like, where are the fucking guns, Hal? Like, I don't need to know about how to use it. I just need to know where are the guns. Something like that. I forgot what the Snipe say in that film with regards to that scene. Either way, I don't remember that scene, but that's a very famous scene. The whole Howl thing. Howl's representation of 2001's Space Odyssey, the enemy known as Howl that's evil. So that was Snipe's little, in that film in Demolition Man, little saying that how technology is the evil entity in this world and that it's pretending to be good. Even though Snipes was clearly the bad guy. If you have a scene like that in here, if this is going Demolition Man route, then I'm all in. If it doesn't go down that route, then I'm out. I'm Audi 2000. Or 5000, whatever the type of cars Audi they make now. So that's it for this. That's all I got to say for the anime for that of December 2023. This will be on my lower tier of my list. I would have this in like a 7.9, a 7.8 category. I didn't want to put this within my top feel, but the only thing that's holding me on, actually no, this is more like a 7.5. The only thing that's holding on to me is the fact that I got a sense of Demolition Man from this. Not that this guy was kicking ass and taking names Demolition Man style, blowing up heads and stuff, but his power level, him being OP over everyone and looking down at his little cocky shits as they think that their future is something that's is hot shit, is not something I was cool with. I was glad that he took him down a peg, especially the bully. So, but I know something dark is coming, and I know there's a reason why he's in this world, and I know a reason that everything he's suspecting to happen is going to go topsy-turvy. And I do appreciate the perspective in this anime more than in Gaea Tima, more than in Mugen, not so much in Suzume, but a lot of perspective shots were shown in this one, and I appreciate that a lot. A lot of overhead, a lot of underhead, a lot of side, a lot of camera work was used within this manga. So I at least gave it props for that. So that's it for this December 2023. I can't say anything else more. It's been a 3-hour video, but I tried to get it done, all three of them, 3 mangas done fast, and with this 1 anime done fast. But I can't do it as faster than I think I can. If I was to give a prediction which one will probably excel to become a future manga or a future anime, I would say I cannot predict what is not going to happen. But if I was going to probably pick one out of the most logical, like a Chocobo in the Chocobo Ranch, which is the most logical to win a race, oh boy, it would probably be between Gintama or it would probably be between Gintama or Saikyou, the Saisoku no Mugen. It will be an up and a down effect for both of these, because I could see both of these failing hugely, and something as and not single one of them, not a single one of these I've mentioned in future ever having a continuation of a series or a film, even Suzume. I could see that happening. But I could also see, depending on who you get to do the director's work, depending on who you get to do in the writer's room, depending on who you get to do the artistry for the animation or for the films, how you do a story depends on the level of competency you are with regards to what it is you're doing. If you're just going superhero style towards the story and you're not fleshing things out properly, that's logically and makes sense, then you're just going big for a big sake, or you're doing exposition for exposition's sake, or you're just going subverting things for subversion's sake, and that's bad. You know, you got to go Hunter x Hunter route, you got to go the Naruto route, you got to go the One Piece route, you got to go the Gintama route, you got to go the JoJo route, you got to go the Miyazaki route, and that's all I got to say about that. And you got to go the Cowboy Bebop route. If you don't know how to do things, those are animes of masterclass work. You could just go towards, do your research, and see how they develop. They have tons of history of paperbacks with regards to various mangas and volumes that would give you a context with regards to how those characters and how those stories eventually flesh out. Right now, I would say the one that makes most sense than anything with regards to knowing about something that will have a more powerful future down the road, I would say would be Saikyou de Saiso no Mugen. Because as much as I want Gaetama to be great down the road, it's hard to sell a kaiju story if the people who are selling the human story don't know how to sell the human story. Thus, the kaiju story becomes shit. But if you're able to sell the kaiju story, which is destroy stuff up, create interesting monsters, create epic battles, create kaiju level destroying, create flip angles and flip screens and flip. If you go Macross Plus with a kaiju, but unlike the Macross plane, the VX1111, if you turn that Macross plane into a kaiju and you do the various different angles within Macross Plus anime or Macross Frontier and how they're doing certain zooms with regards to the scene, and you do that in manga form and you do that in anime form, but it's a kaiju that's doing that, hands down will be the best kaiju manga since way back in the days. So the two ones I recommend is Tima or and Saikyou de Saiso no Mugen, and I would also recommend Suzume. But just know for Suzume, if you're expecting Miyazaki level stuff, you ain't going to get it. But if you're expecting a good journey with regards to secondary characters, you're going to get that. So I was kind of disappointed with Suzume, but I was also appreciative of Suzume. However, I still put these two mangas above Suzume. What Gaetama is selling, I'm down with it. I feel it. What's Saikyou de Saiso no Mugen is doing, I feel it. Even though that story came to an end after I read the 10th volume, or the 10th chapter of the volume, I know for a fact after that full volume is over of that 10th chapter, I know for a fact that there's more stories to go here. Because this isn't about simply a virtual reality gaming world. This simply isn't about doors appearing in the real world and you going to on this venture of these dungeons and wizards and warlocks and mythological creatures and all this is happening. It's not simply about that. It's about the process of what's going on with the real world versus what's going on with the fantasy world. And if you ever watch the anime, which I recommend people watch the anime called Gate, look it up online, Gate. Gate follow a similar premise. In fact, this follows almost a similar premise as Gate does. Though it's not the same, Gate's about real fairy tale world from a real dimension invading reality, and both can actually affect each other, vice versa. One could invade one reality, other could invade the other. This one, they can't interact the way they want with each other, but it has a very Gate feeling. So I would recommend, if you are looking for something that's Dungeons and Dragons like, but also virtual reality. Like I would go with Saikyou de Saisho no Mugen, easy, hands down. But if you want yourself some Godzilla Zero stuff, but in a different way, that is not about monsters going head on battles, battle royale against each other, but it's more of a human focused story, and you want to know what the hell's going on in the human side of the story, then that's the route I would go. So those are the two I believe that has potential futures. They could all fail. They could all fail. But those two seem to have more potentials than something like they're making another Suzume. I don't see them happening. Or Mr. Maryoku Man 999. I don't see this becoming great unless it goes the Demolition Man route. Or it goes something that's beyond the Demolition Man route. If it doesn't go beyond the Demolition Man route, in Japanese style beyond Demolition Man route, I don't see it lasting either. So that's all I can say about this. It's a 3-hour video. Those are the points I gave to it. 8.5 for 8.5 for Saikyou de Saisho no Mugen. About 8 point, anywhere from 8.7 to a 9 for Gaea Tima, and about anywhere from 8.6, I believe. I gave it 8.5 to about a 9 for a Suzume. So it's weird to me that Gaea Tima and Suzume is. You would think that something like Suzume would be that great, but the fact that Suzume herself wasn't that interesting really took it away. That the chair and the cat, no. But overall, these are as good as it will get. I should say this is as good as it gets. This is as good as it gets. That's what I'm trying to say. As good as it gets for December 2023. If you try to look up other anime that are considered new, or even some that are considered good, or unless it's a continuing series, then you say, oh, well, this person doesn't know anything about anime. I found better anime than that. Is this anime new? Or is this anime continuing? If it's continuing, then you're not following me throughout this video. I know Suzume isn't new, but there is no new anime. There is no new anime now in December that was released in December in Japan that's in America now, unless you buy that product from a store online and thus watch it video, and then you make a video of what you're watching. As I said before at the beginning, this is based on streaming services. This is based on online content. And this is based on what's given on Crunchyroll and stuff. If it hasn't gotten Crunchyroll yet, obviously I'm not going to throw it up here yet. So I might have to wait for December. I might have to wait for January or for February for the stuff that came out in actually December to actually come out for December. But they're going to be released in January or in February. So that's how the world is. I have no power over those things. I don't have power over streaming service or over embargo, so I can't state things that haven't reached me yet based on not paying for something from a foreign country in paper form or credit card form to get an actual physical copy to do it. I wait on streaming services, or I wait for Crunchyroll or other form of services in order to state things. Thankfully, manga does not fall under this category. And thankfully, I'm so thankful that it doesn't have to abide by this craziness. But I don't want my final image on this video to be that of, let me go all the way up. I don't want my final image on this video to be that of Maryoku Man 999. If I'm going to have it, my final image on this video be remembered for anything, talking on anything, it's better be for damn Gaea Tima or for Mugen. So what image should I pick? I'm going to leave on for about maybe a good minute. Let's see here. I think this works. It looks good. I like the black and white, but I don't know what it is. For some reason, I find value in Tima more. There's something about it that's more appealing. Maybe it's because I watched Godzilla -1. I find that you could tell a great story with a kaiju that works. And if you could tell a great story with a kaiju that works, then you can succeed at telling stories with regards to giant monsters, which doesn't get a lot of love, which I actually like. And so I think this was my best scene here. This overhead perspective. It's either that or this, or I think it was either that or this one. This was my best scene in Tima. I like the idea of the fish monster coming out. I like this scene as well. But the whole point of the shot was, yeah, I believe this one was my favorite one. The eyes, the bird's eye view, worm's eye view, the lens eye view, based on bird and worm's eye view, and where the character was positioned. The character could have been positioned at the front, could have been positioned at the back, could have been higher, could have been lower. I just like the positioning of this very well, more than anything else. So I'm going to leave it here. I'm going to keep it here. Something tells me I should put a monster as the forefront for this. If I'm going Tima, I should go full Tima. Yeah, I'm going to go full Tima. I'll leave it there. Tima is pretty damn awesome. So I'm going to leave that one there for about a full minute. Probably won't say anything. Or I'll just check out and whatever happens, happens. So whatever happens, happens. I guess that's the end of this video. Yeah, whatever pops up, pops up. But I really don't want it to be Maryoku Man 999. So I'm going to keep quiet right now. I'll leave this one here for a full minute. And peace out.